command, then add command, oboe token.
Oh yeah, you use Streamlabs, right?
Yeah.
How do you like that?
I don't.
You don't? Okay. Because I'm about to say, because I use MooBot presently, but it doesn't, like, if I wanted to have follower notifications, it's paid. And I heard that Streamlabs has it free, so I was thinking about switching.
Yeah, you can use Alertbox for free, and then you can get, like, you know, all your...
Alertbox, you say?
Yeah, like followers, rates...
Write that down.
All that stuff is free. And then you can add your own custom GIFs and sounds and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's free. Oh, what's up, Patroller? How's it going?
Oh, I should probably have your chat up, huh? Just so I can see them.
Oh, I guess I have to do the same thing. Man, co-streaming's so cool.
I mean, it's not like there's gonna be anybody in my chat. But
oh, come on. What's up, Dill Pickle?
All right.
Patroller's already like, is my game in your top 20? Listen.
Can I pop out your chat? Yeah, I don't really think I can.
You can pop it out, yeah.
I can? How?
Yeah.
I can collapse.
Pop out button.
Oh, it's down here. Okay, I got it. Pop out chat.
Give us a second. We're very professional. We're getting things set up.
We know exactly what we're doing.
How the hell? I don't even see your chat.
I don't even see your chat.
Oh, here we go. I got it. And then I do pop out. How do I do pop out?
It's the gear, and then it says pop out, but then the window just vanishes.
I got it. I've got pop out working.
Well,
if it's not, I will assume it's 21st. Don't tell me otherwise. I won't say anything to you, Patroller, because I'm not going to spoil my list for the stream. And then after the GMTK jam is long forgotten, I will be digging through your YouTube channel. Yeah, that's number 20.
Oh, I should make a YouTube video off of this. Well, not this, but like this category in general. Why do I?
I'm watching all your videos, Patroller.
Okay.
You should have never posted your trailer on your YouTube. Because now that algorithm is all over you. Everything you make in my feed now. And now that I watch Get Lucky in Minecraft, it's over. Every day it's just going to be nonstop Patroller on my feed.
That sounds incredibly threatening. despite it being very supportive, it sounds threatening. All right. Oh no, free views. That's pretty funny, actually. All right. I couldn't get it to pop out, but I'm just gonna switch windows. That's totally fine.
You couldn't get it to pop out.
I couldn't get it to pop out. It just goes black. Because normally when you pop out, hello, thank you for ! Oboe token spelled correctly. I really appreciate that.
It's really easy when I can see your name on my screen right now.
Very fair. I try I go to the chat settings and I hit pop out, and that's supposed to bring up like another window, which is your chat, right?
Yeah.
But it just does nothing.
That's good.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm just gonna switch windows. Like
try this. Let's hack into it. See if we can hack into it. Try putting this into a little browser window. If this works, I'm a genius.
Try putting this. Okay.
I'm sending you a link.
Chat pop out. Oh my god.
Am I a genius?
Evidently, I think.
Wait, Patroller, I see that you've posted an Oboe Tokens chat, but post something else in my chat really quick so we can see if I'm a genius.
Yeah, I can see it.
There we go.
Wow, that's cool. Okay.
I hacked in.
So now I have access to both chats.
Hacked into my own chat.
Okay. My goodness. I now have so many, like my first monitor is like nice and clean just for presentation like purposes.
Yeah.
And then my right monitor is just garbage.
Same.
It's just so much.
Yeah, my monitor looks like spaghetti, and then I have this nice like clean monitor.
All right. So
and I guess I need to like. Oh no, we're good. Never mind.
All right. So with that, I guess we can start with you, sir.
Oh, are we starting already?
Do you want to, or do you want to just chit chat for a bit?
Let's hang out and see if we get some more people in here.
Sure. How
I
do
don't
you
want to jump. I don't
feel?
want to jump in.
Because I wanted to talk about this because you mentioned it yesterday.
Oh no!
Well, I'm not exactly calling you out, but it's just you mentioned it yesterday of like not really feeling confident in being able to pick 20.
Yeah.
What? Why was that? Maybe post in the GMTK.
Discord.
Can you? Are you a patron?
Yeah, I'm a patron.
Oh, I don't have that kind of money.
Well, you don't need to be a patron to post there, though.
You don't?
No.
I thought I was locked out now that the game jam's over.
Not yet. It will be.
Oh, okay.
Co-streaming, GMTK top 20 with a will token, and then I'll put both of our links here.
Oh, excellent! Thank you.
TV/ThetaGC, and
it's just garbage.
Twitch.tv/will token. Okay. There we go. Nice. Double embed and everything. Discord's so smart.
Discord is so smart. So yeah. I don't know. Why
so you asked me the top 20 question. So it wasn't so much that I was like feeling like I couldn't make a top 20 so much as like as with most of the jams, it's like the theme sort of drives the content of the jam, and like 90% of the games that get submitted are all like basically the same kind of game.
Right.
And unfortunately this time around, because the theme was joined together, that meant that like most of the games are controlling two characters that are connected together at the same time.
Tied together with a rope, yes.
Yeah, and like that's just not the kind of gameplay that I really enjoy that much. Luckily, like to my surprise, there were a lot of like incredible puzzle games. I mean, I shouldn't say to my surprise because there's so many talented people, but
of course, yeah.
I just was, when I was thinking about like what I had played so far, I just couldn't push out of my mind the fact that there were so many games that were just like the same thing that I played.
How many did you end up reviewing, by the way?
I think
talking about himself. That's pretty funny.
I think I reviewed like 100, I want to say.
100? Okay.
Something like that, yeah. And then I started looking back through my list, and then I had some other people on Itch who had lists that I also looked at to get some extra info. And like what I found is that actually like there were a ton of like really brilliant games, and it was just that my memory was clogged with just two characters attached by a rope. So I was just like what can I think of? And then I'm looking at my list and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that game was brilliant. Oh, that game was brilliant. And it was just really easy. And then it turned into like, oh no, I have like 40 games. How do I make 20? Right. So I was like totally wrong in my assessment when. Okay,
I'm glad that you saw the light.
What about one character attached by rope to a grappling hook? Very, very true. There is a game about a character attached by a rope to a bow and arrow.
Right. What was that? It was like the ancient word for eagle or something. It was like atelier or something. That was a really cool game. I played that on day one.
Right. That game is very cool.
Didn't exactly
not be in my list.
I'm about to say did not exactly make it onto my list either, but I would really like to see where it goes further. Because I played a lot. I ended up reviewing 178 games, and so like when I was going through my ratings list and being like, okay, well, what are my top 20? There was only actually about like 14 that I was like, dude, these are like stellar. But then I was like, okay, well, that leaves like about 6 if I wanted to get to a nice even 20. And the 6 that I ended up like adding afterwards were what I called best in category. Because there were a lot of like, as you just said, there was a lot of like repetitious categories of like 2 people together by a string, controlling multiple characters at the same time with the same buttons. There was, I don't know if you ended up playing it, but it was a game called Fire and Dragon. Or Ice Dragon, Fire Dragon, and it was literally just like 2 dragons that spun on a pivot, and you had to like attack enemies that were coming around here. Top 20 most ratings
No, Bogdan, we're doing our top 20 as in like our top 20 favorite games from the Jam.
Yeah, which ones we like the most. But yeah, I got a lot of them. I got a lot of stuff on here that I just think people should. I even have like a mini category of criminally underrated.
Okay.
Because like there were a few games that I played that I was like, dude, these were like really good, and then I go back like however many days later, like 4 or 5 days later, and I look at how many ratings they had, and they were still at like 12 ratings, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Top 20 most characters attached to each other. That's pretty good. You do have a rival in that category, by the way, your team. Factory versus Glob, who will win?
True.
Which, by the way, because I know that the name of the game is actually like Factory, but I can't help but say Factory.
I like the pronunciations that we've heard for the game. It's fun.
Because it's literally just one letter off of Factorio. So it's like, obviously my brain goes Factorio. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the different pronunciations we get. Factory, Factory. I don't know. It's fun. It's nice to hear people like arguing about how they think it's pronounced, because that means that people are taking ownership over it, which is really cool.
Must be a little surreal too, because I mean, I think you've indicated it multiple times, and you've been very humble about Factory in general, but like, how do you... It's pronounced Factory. That's really funny. You're a very funny person, Patelier. Were you expecting this kind of attention to, be lopped onto your game?
Not at all. No, I mean, when we make Jam games,
you had to have known something, though. You had to have known that you were on like the right track.
Honestly, okay. So there's two parts to that question, and I'll answer the first part first, which is like,
sure.
when we make Jam games, we're not trying to like make the game that's gonna win the Jam. Like, our focus isn't on like making the best game for the Jam. Our focus is on like challenging ourselves to do something we haven't done before, and then like forcing ourselves to do it in a short time span, because it's sort of like a way to like, just, you don't have a choice. You're like, oh, I want to do this thing, and I have 48 hours to do it, and that's it. So you have a deadline, you have to get it done. So you try to get it done, and we did that last year with Animal Control as well. And like, we had this idea, and we were like, can we integrate this sort of like pseudo like multiplayer into the game? And then like in this game, it was like, can we make a game in a genre we've never tried before? And it was just like, we just wanted to challenge ourselves, and so we picked a design that like challenged us in some new way. And so we weren't thinking like, oh yeah, we have something really special here, until everybody just started talking about it, and then we were like, oh, maybe we did make something great. But the other part of the question is like, we had to know that you asked like, did we know that we were making something good when we were doing it? And actually, if you watch our like development stream, which I streamed like the entire thing, Saturday night, I was like checked out of it. I was like not even into it anymore, because we had spent more than half the development time just trying to get the connections to work right. Because like, one of my main inspirations for Factory was Mini Metro, which was like, the feeling of connecting stations together in Mini Metro is so good.
True, very true.
I wanted to make a game that captured that feeling, and that was the main inspiration for making Factory, was just those connections. Which is funny, because if it works really well, you don't really pay attention to it anymore.
You don't pay attention to how the factories connect to each other. You pay attention to like how the parts of the letters make new letters.
Right. Well, and not only that, but just that like the system works well enough that you don't have to pay attention to it. You just sort of ignore it. You're like, oh, it works exactly how I expect it to, and then you just stop paying attention to it. Which is the best case scenario, is that it's not sticking out as like this annoying thing that's hard to work with, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to capture that feeling, and it took us like more than half the Jam to capture that feeling. And when we finally had it, we were like, oh wait, we still have to make the rest of the game, and there's less than half the Jam time left. And it was like, and it wasn't feeling good, and it wasn't looking good. I mean, like, we had the connections working, but then we switched up like to like this node system, which we ended up keeping, which like just didn't look good and didn't feel good. And then it was just like all these little minor changes that we made, and then suddenly like it just clicked into place like on the last day, where suddenly it went from not feeling good at all and like me not really being into it to like feeling great and like me being obsessed with it. And there was just like all these little minor quality of life changes that we were making that like just took it from something that didn't feel great, and I didn't like it, and then suddenly I fell in love with it. So no, I wouldn't say that like we knew like going through the process that we were making something good. Definitely not.
That's really fascinating to hear just overall, because like obviously, you know, we worked in the project as or we worked in the game jam as well, and it was a very similar thing where like we were really excited at first to be working on something because we had like a large team that we worked with. We had a team of 9 people total, and we were really excited because we thought that meant that we would be able to like split into smaller groups of 3 and then come back together to like, you know, share our work and whatnot. And very similarly to what you described, it was like halfway through Saturday, it was like, yeah, this isn't working.
Yeah, right.
And the difference being that obviously you guys, you know, you got touched by an angel and your project became incredible.
We got extremely lucky.
I'm about to say, I don't even know if it's necessarily just lucky. I think I would diagnose that your project had such a good idea at its core that just by working on it as hard as you guys did, it was able to shine through eventually. You know what I mean? So I would love to, I mean, obviously it's 31 hours and I don't have that kind of free time, but I would love to watch just the process in general that you live streamed of like how you guys made the game, just to like learn more on how to do this sort of process. Because I have no idea.
Would say,
oh, sorry, please
go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, I was gonna say because I don't know if he'll be here for today's stream, but Mr. Richmond, when he was in chat, me and him actually have very similar intentions within like game production of like writer, director, creative type person. And so I just want to learn how to properly manage people like in large groups, and that's why I wanted to have 9 people. And so I think in order to do that, I need to spend more time paying attention to smaller groups first to see how you make that efficient, and then do the larger groups. But yeah.
I was gonna say that the one thing I wanted to bring up about like for us in terms of like developing that like helps us a lot with jam games is that we spend way too long in the brainstorming session, where basically when we see the theme, we brainstorm first about all the ideas that everybody else is going to make. Try to figure out like what like the most obvious options are, and then like once we're past all of those, then we start to try to get into like the you know, breaking out of the box ideas, and we don't allow ourselves to go with like the first 2 or 3 ideas. So we like keep forcing ourselves to like move further and further away, and like try
you
to be
identify
more
traps first and then avoid them. That's interesting.
Yeah, and so like we spent like 4 hours brainstorming before we actually started working on the game.
Oh wow, okay.
And then the result is that we come up with something that we do feel like is truly unique, that like we're not going to see another game that looks like our game and feels like our game, because like that's what we want. Like we want to make something that doesn't feel like every other game that's in the jam, and not that there aren't plenty of like very unique games, because there certainly are. But like we just focused really hard on like, you know, coming up with an idea that just feels like it's going to stand out and be original, and it's mostly just to challenge ourselves to do something that like we don't see a lot of, right? And I think I just like the advice I want to give to anybody who in the chat who's like jumping into jams in the future is like spend longer time like brainstorming. Like even though it feels scary and it feels like you're giving up development time, like the longer you spend brainstorming, the more likely you are to land on something like really, really cool.
I'm not nearly as a grizzled veteran, but it's like I can definitely say I thought like we spent an hour ideating, and I was panicking because I thought we were spending way too much time. I thought we were falling into the trap of just kind of like spinning our wheels and not really going anywhere. Because in our game, we fell in love with the idea of Cerberus splitting into 3 smaller dogs and then rejoining back together. We fell in love with that idea, and then the characters that we have was really good. But I don't know, now that you mention it, it makes a lot more sense. If we had just spent more time thinking of what that actually meant to like split apart and then rejoin, we would have had an actual game design to work on, as opposed to just 3 characters that we really liked. So that's really interesting.
So do you want to jump into the list? I just wanted to give people a chance to see posts and join the stream.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so I am on your screen, and just to make sure I understand, you're looking at A Pleasant Walk Under the Stars?
Yeah, the first 2.5 games are visible, basically.
Okay. I need to, when I'm scrolling, I'm just gonna look at your screen, so that's fine.
Is
Okay,
Obo's
I get it.
stream like legible, by the way, chat? Because I'm seeing it on an extremely tiny version of my stream, so I just want to make sure that...
I'm looking at your stream and it's blurry just because it's like it's a stream of a stream. So obviously it's gonna get kinda it's gonna get kind of blurry. But we don't
do you have
yeah, sorry.
Do you have Nitro?
I do not.
Okay. Hold on a second. 1 minute. We're gonna do some live stuff.
Oh no,
here.
they can see my Discord icon.
Whoops.
Don't just give Nitro. What are the top 20? So we don't know what Mark Brown's selections are going to be, obviously. Theta and myself over the past week or so did our own reviews and whatnot, so we're just doing a delightful little co-stream where we both talk about what our individual top 20s were. So that's basically all we're doing for this stream.
Yes. Exactly. Wait. Why can't I? Okay, here we go.
I'm about to say, if it would also be easier for you, I could also just send you screen snaps, I guess, but...
No.
You're good? Okay.
I'm good. 1 second.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay, and then I send this to you.
You send this to me. That's extremely generous, Theta.
That way you can stream in 1080p, and that way nobody can complain about blurry stream.
Okay, so I got that. Sweet.
How good of a movie is The Prestige? Do you want my memory of how good that movie is,
or do you want the real answer? Because The Prestige is freaking awesome.
My memory of that movie is like unbelievably good. I don't know if I watched it again with my like much more cynical and analytical brain now how I would feel about it, but I can tell you that my memory of it is that it's extremely good.
By chance, did any of you guys like the game name Chained Up in Time? I don't think it's on my list. Well, if Obotoken said it's awesome, it's very good. It also
does the stream look better now, chat?
I should have changed. I should have changed quality, so it should be better.
Is it better?
If not, I can just end and then restart.
Mildly better. Let's go.
Maybe because it's zoomed in. Do you want me to like close the screen share and then open it real quick just to see if
no, it's in 1080p. I hovered over it and it says
oh
1080p.
You can see. Okay.
Yeah. But I looked at it on my screen and it's legible, so I don't care what these people are saying.
Oh no.
Just kidding. Okay, we're good. Go ahead.
So I described it previously, like in the pre-show, but I had separated my games in my top 20 into like some smaller categories to help me talk about them. And so A Pleasant Walk Under the Stars, or however the hell you say it in French, I chose this as a game with excellent aesthetic, because there were a lot of games in this jam that had the like connecting stars to make constellations. There were a lot that used that in general. But A Pleasant Walk Under the Stars was just so beautiful. Like, it had this like overall Art Deco style that was just enamoring to look at, and just the music was beautiful. It looked great, and then the puzzles itself, where you were just taking the points and you had to like connect them via the mild stars and stuff, was really engaging. It could easily have just been released on like iPhone as an app, and I wouldn't even have like looked at it twice in terms of like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
What about the Constellation photo game? I don't remember the name of that one, but I played that one yesterday.
I think it's called Star Snap or Star Shot.
Star Snap sounds familiar. Yeah, that one was also very good. I really enjoyed it, and it had a really cute aesthetic overall. But there was just something about A Pleasant Walk Under the Stars that was, I don't know, it was like chef's kiss.
I will say that Star Snap is an incredible game, but it's like the Pleasant Walk Under the Stars feels more like a game than Star Snap does. Star Snap feels more artistic, like more like you're making something beautiful, which I mean, obviously, like the art is incredible. Whereas like A Pleasant Walk Under the Stars feels a little bit more like a game, like a puzzle game. Bogdan, that's not gonna happen.
Y'all need to start saying the real name of the game. I don't know how to say it. It's like Passible Soirée à Flux d'Étoiles. I think that's as good as I got, man. Translate.google.com. It's a pleasant walk under the stars. Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
I mean, nice try. Thank you. I give effort.
So yeah, as Obo said, like their format's a little different, right? So yours is not ordered from 20 to 1, right?
Correct. Mine is, I basically have a 5-way tie for first, and then a 15-way tie for second. So anything that's in the, like, I'm gonna be reserving my like top 5 for the de toilette. That's really funny. I'm gonna be reserving my top 5 for like the very end of the list, and everything else is just really good, and I highly recommend people check it out if they haven't seen it already.
Right. So for me, I tried to order them from 20 to 1. But that being said, like there were a lot of games that I had to cut from this list that it was very painful to cut. And I still think that every single one of them is amazing in its own way. And there's at least in the beginning, you'll see that there's some genre changes from game to game, but then you'll see quickly that my true colors show and my favorite kind of game, there's a lot of it near the bottom of my list.
Puzzle platformers. No.
But the first game on my list is this game, Telephone Trouble, which initially I actually, even before I had played this game, I already like put it in my list of top 20, and then I took a second to play it last night while making the list, because I watched somebody play this game for quite a long time and was completely blown away by how good just the animation of plugging wires into a switchboard looked.
Just like pulling it out and it goes like click, and then you move it and then it goes click. It's so smooth.
It's so tactile. It feels so good. The sound effects are great. The animation of the end of the cable sort of turning out when you pull it out, it's so nice. Like that's something that it reminds me of, like how in Factory we focus so much on the connectors, like that they must have focused so much on that feel, because that like sells the whole game. Like
imagine
really
I just imagine somebody sitting there for like 6 hours being like, I gotta make this feel better, how do I do it? And they add like the sound effects of you like, you know, clicking on it and stuff like that. It's so good.
Right. The other reason that I like this game so much and that I wanted it on my list is because this game has like the most potential for like wildly expanding from this base concept. Like they can add so much to this experience. Like my first thought is like moving in a Papers, Please direction of like connecting calls between maybe undesirable people and like, you know, maybe having to hang up calls that might be like discussing
troublesome,
like, you know, secret information. But just like the fact that even just as it is now, that the game feel is so strong that it doesn't even matter that like the gameplay in Telephone Trouble in this jam version is not like that deep in terms of it's just literally connect point A to point B. It feels so good that it doesn't even matter. Plus, like beyond that, there's this crazy attention to detail, which is like hovering over the cables, you get different voice sounds, and like the daytime changes to nighttime outside the window, which is just like completely unnecessary. But like there was a lot of attention to detail that was put into this game, and the fact that they were able to pull off like not only such a like powerful game feel, but that extra level of detail meant that like this was something really special, and like I had to put it in my list. Like it was just like obvious to me.
I'm about to say that
was, like, really
the Telephone Trouble was really good, and I very much enjoyed playing it, and it was actually quite funny. It didn't actually end up making it on my list due to some technical issues, but I actually was trying to choose between Telephone Trouble and another like switchboard operator game, which is Hello Operator. Which does take it in the Papers, Please style that you were just talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like if you go out and you check Hello Operator, they have this whole thing where you have to like remember information that secret agents tell you while you're also just connecting regular civilian conversations and whatnot. And it has like this really oppressive atmosphere that I really enjoyed. And the problem was that I couldn't choose between the two of them, because Telephone Trouble has like the tactile like visual aesthetic going for it, and then Hello Operator had the narrative that I fell in love with. So trying to figure out between the two which one I liked more just didn't seem fair, so I just kind of like eliminated both of them from my list.
That reminds me, I wanted to say that obviously like I made this top 20 list. I didn't play all 5,800 games. These 20 games came from the games I played, which was somewhere around 200. So like, you know, the fact that Hello Operator exists and that it does some of the stuff that I wanted to do is amazing. I had no idea that that game even existed. So
right,
I don't want somebody to think like, oh, you didn't put this game in the list and it's a better version of this game. It's like, well, I didn't know.
No, exactly, and that's what's so incredible about the GMTK Jam. Like, however many years in, is that we now have so many games to like check out that there is probably going to be stuff on both of our lists that we just haven't even even seen before, but yet it's on the other person's top 20, you know, which is incredible. Right. So yeah. Okay. Let me I'm cutting back to my view. Excellent. All right, so up next I have Clockwork. This is actually one that I only started playing yesterday. I caught it at the very end of yesterday's stream, and just something about the game really caught my attention. Beyond
I was watching you play it last night.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you were in chat. Yeah, I remember that now. But the actual game that they released for the Game Jam is a little sparse. It only has the 3 levels, but those 3 levels perfectly illustrate how the idea can go so much further than how it is now. So the basic premise of the game is that you have a 3x3 grid, and when you hit tab while you're in a part of the grid, it zooms out to show you the whole grid, and you can move different parts of the level around so you can navigate properly through the level. And it leads to this really interesting like back and forth of like, I have to move into this room, so now I can elevate it, and then I go up, and now I move the first room back, and it's just wonderful, and it has this really great aesthetic. It's very Celeste in visuals as well, and this one was in my category of would love to see more. I would love to see Clockwork taken to like the umpteenth degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed just from watching it. It definitely looked really nice, and the front fro just had me
the
so
giant
happy.
wiggly front fro is very endearing from a character design standpoint.
Right. Yeah, I was really impressed by what I saw. I guess the only thing that I was like wanting, you know, maybe more in the future from is just maybe like to add a little bit more detail to the art style, because it felt like the world itself that you were in was like somewhat cold, because it was just like this sort of dark blue color, and there wasn't really a lot of like detail around. But obviously it's a jam, so it's like how much
I was gonna say, like 48 hours, some people don't necessarily, you know, get that far, and that's totally fine, because in my mind I can see this going incredibly far, because the basic principle of the game is so endearing. So,
well, I mean, if they spent like a few weeks like just like really working on like adding a little bit more artistic detail to the environment, I think this could be like really special.
I remember I was talking about it like after stream yesterday with one of my friends, and we were talking about like, what if there was like a part of the level where when you move the stuff around, there's like water that flows, and you can like move it around and spin water wheels, and it's just like you can do so much with the basic principles of the game. So I just thought it was really cool. So yeah,
nice. All right, so my number 19 is this game called Ident. So I had no idea like what to expect from this game, and when I started playing it, I didn't even understand how it worked at all. And then I was sort of just running around, and I felt like I was solving puzzles, and the puzzles made a lot of sense, and I was having a good time. And then suddenly I lost, and at first I was like, "What have I done wrong?" And then I saw that there was a timer, and the timer was counting down from 45. And I was just running around solving puzzles, and I was like, oh, okay, I only have 45 seconds to beat the game. This seems pretty straightforward. The puzzles are nice. The look of it is nice. And I was like, but I'm like, you know, what's really like tying this back to the theme? I'm like, oh, this is just an insanely fast-paced escape room. And I was like, fine, I'll just try to beat it and see if I can. And then I made it a little further, and then I opened up a vent, and the vent let me back into the room I started in. And at first I was like, what am I even doing here? Like, it feels like I'm going nowhere. And then I realized, oh, every time you pull the string, it resets the timer. And then I realized this game is genius. This is an escape room where you have to keep going back into the room that you've escaped from over and over and over again to reset the timer. And that they keep opening paths back, like almost Dark Souls style, to get back to the room faster, to pull that string again. And I was like, this is one of the most brilliant interpretations of the theme that I've seen. Like, there's so many, really cool ways to interpret the theme joined together. But the fact that like you're bound to the room that you're escaping from is so fascinating to me. And then, if that wasn't enough, if it wasn't pretty enough and the puzzles weren't interesting enough, and then the concept wasn't interesting enough, it's also it has scalable difficulty, which is like you never see scalable difficulty in jam games. Like the fact that they added a system to just change the timer. If you want to play a slower version of it because you think it's too hard, you can do that. If you want to play a breakneck 15-second speed, which I am telling you, chat, I'm playing this game after the jam and I'm beating it with the 15-second timer. I don't care how long it takes me, because the designer was in chat and they said, I don't even know if it's possible at 15 seconds. So I'm doing it. But super fun. And then just like, again, like the interpretation of the theme. I love seeing games that take the theme to a place that like you don't see any other games doing it. And I think that's great. Yeah, I loved it.
I also played this one on stream, and the designer was also in chat. It was one of those things where it was like right at the end of stream, he came in, he suggested it with the form and whatnot, and I was playing it, and I was very similar to you. At first, I was like, I don't really get it. Like, I didn't understand what I was supposed to do, and then the vent thing happened, and I was like, oh my god, that's genius. But the thing that I fell in love with ident was the like overall aesthetic that was going on. Just like how it feels so draconic in narrative, in the sense of like, if you don't take your, like, it doesn't matter if you smash chairs or throw around boxes or like leave the room, if you don't take your pic. Oh,
keep going.
No, it's fine. If you don't take the picture, that's when the police show up, and it's like, that's so weird, and I love it so much. The designer was in chat, and he was like, they didn't get around to implementing it for the game jam, but they were saying that there would be a thing where you hold down a button to salute, and if you don't salute the camera when you take the picture, you just instantly die because the police show up. And I was like, that's great, that's so good. Like, I would love to see a version of ident that's just huge. You know what I mean? Just right. Massive. Because I think I talked about it while I was streaming it, but it's like, it's actually very similar in design to Minute. I don't know if you played Minute, but Minute is, but I'll say it's very similar in design to Minute, where it's just like, you only have however many seconds before you die, and so you have to keep coming back to the same room. And it's just really good. I agree, 100%. That's definitely a game that deserves some praise, because it's a very good idea.
Yeah, a huge inspiration for Sixit was Minute, actually. That was part of the reason why we ended up calling it Sixit, because of the concept of that, like, you only have so long to explore the world, but that everything you do in the world saves. So, like, all your progress is always saving, but you're essentially always resetting. And in Sixit, it's not based on time, it's based on actions, but it's sort of a simple, like, that was one of our like main inspirations when we were designing the game.
All right, cool. I don't want people getting ahead of themselves. It's on my list, I promise. All right. So up next I have Phasing Puller. This is one of those games that I thought was just really delightful. Like, it had an idea that I had seen before, but it was executed in such just a clean and pleasant way that I just played the entire game and just had a thoroughly good time enjoying myself. Like, I didn't even really notice that it was a jam game, in the sense that I wasn't thinking about like, oh, I wish this could go like a little bit further, or I wish blah, because the game was just satisfying in and of its own right. So the way that the game implemented the theme and worked mechanically was that you had a grappling hook that could only pull objects after it had phased through something first. So you would pull a block and it would stop on the thing that you were phasing through, and you would use that to like make staircases or make bridges or move batteries around a level, and it was just really nice to play, and it had a very good aesthetic overall as well. It was just a very effective game, and so I wanted to have it on the list because I would love to see a like full release version of this, for however much money, but it's like I would just play this on my own time,
Yeah, it's just cool to see how much of your list is different from mine, because these games that you have on your list that aren't on my list are games that like they're not on my list, not because I didn't like them, but because I literally didn't know they existed. So this is like exciting, because I do want to play like all the games that are on your list, because I I mean, I can see more of the list than chat can, but I can see games that like I never even heard of. So that's kind of exciting.
It's one of the benefits of just going into the submission list and just refreshing until I see something that looks cool. Like, oh, I'll take that. Oh yeah, but yeah. So that was Phasing Puller. I very much enjoyed that game.
Nice. Okay, so then I guess what am I on 18 now? I can't remember. So my number 18 is this. This is going to become a running theme, and anyone who knows me well is not surprised. This is a Sokoban puzzle game about moving squares around in a grid, and it's called They Must, which is like a super ominous name, and it's even more ominous in the game. But basically, the concept of the game is that each of the different blocks in the game have a different rule that they must follow. And so like the first one you're introduced to is the skull, which must die. And so the very first screen is just a skull and some spikes, and it just says they must die, which is just this like super dark and ominous theme. But it turns into this whole idea of that every block has its own rule that must be met in order for you to beat the level. And they're incredibly hard. Like the levels get so punishingly hard. I still haven't even finished the game. It's something that I'm going to go back to after the GMTK craziness is over. But it's like I love. Hey Richmond, how's it going? I love that the puzzles are not just one solution. It's not just like get this to this place. It's that everything has its own rule, and as long as you're meeting all the rules, then the level's over. But it's not trivial to do, and the puzzles are extremely well designed. It has like a very nice look to it, and then I love that like beyond it just being a basic block movement Sokoban game, that it has this like ominous feel to it because of the presentation and the whole they must concept. Yeah, super cool. I love the vibe of this game a lot, and like I said, the puzzle design is excellent, if not extremely difficult.
I will definitely have to like check this out after we're done with all this nonsense, just so that way I could see exactly what this type of game is all about, because I didn't play well, I played stuff that was similar to this, but I did not play this, and that sounds awesome. I really want to check it out.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart when it comes to puzzle games. I'll say that much. It's
okay, so I won't check it out then. Okay. Up next on my list is Gods and Coins. There were a lot of puzzle games in this jam that were just very simple. Like it almost feels like they could have just been tabletop versions of a real game. You know what I mean? So there were a lot of games that were just like, what if chess, but you could mix the pieces? Or what if chess, but the pieces were linked together? And that was all cool, and that was, I enjoyed those. But Gods and Coins was a particularly fascinating game because the idea was that you have this big, like, Chinese Go board. I guess it's whatever, but you know what I mean? It's like a big board with little tokens on them. And the idea
is... this is the abstract puzzle game, right? Like the abstract board game?
More or less, yes. Because the idea was that you had the little coins. Coins could mix with other elements. There were like the 4 basic elements: fire, water, earth, air, and you could mix the elements together to make like a third element. So like fire and earth would make lava. That makes sense. And your objective throughout the entire game was to clear the board, because if you matched 2 tokens of the same element, whether it be lava or fire or water, what have you, they would disappear. They would just vanish. And so the entire game became this fascinating thing of like looking at the whole board, and it wasn't one giant puzzle. It was actually like 16 or 17 small groups of 4. And it was fascinating because you would just take the groups of 4, the 4 would turn into 8, and then you would like extrapolate from there, and then eventually the puzzle would just solve itself. That, and then like if you guys ever go back and check out Gods and Coins, it also just has a really chill soundtrack, and like I don't even know, I think I ended up spending like a solid like 25 minutes, and I didn't even realize that I had gone over time on this particular game because I was just vibing so hard. So that's good. It was really cool. So of the like physical board game translated to digital, this was my favorite type of that game.
Well, I'm a sucker for board games, so I will definitely have to play it. I love that stuff. That's super cool. Okay, so 17, I think, is this game called Idle Contact. Again, in the same vein of moving blocks around a grid puzzle. So this game was like, again, extremely hard, but it was like I've played a lot of this kind of game, and this was such a unique concept, like that I am surprised that I haven't really seen before. And not only did it have a super weird concept, which is basically like you have these spaces in the grid that you have to place blocks into. The only way you can move them is by connecting to them, and the way you connect to them is as soon as you're in the same line as them and they can see you. It draws this like sort of, you can kind of see it in the art. It draws this like chain between the two of you, and then you can't break it. And when you move around, the block stays at that fixed distance from you. And if you can't, if the block can't move, then you can't move either. So sometimes you have to connect to blocks in ways that you don't necessarily want to, and that makes it more difficult to move around in the environment. And then it takes it one step further, like almost Steven Sausage Roll style, and introduces mechanics that might surprise you, and I won't spoil them. But they introduce mechanics in a similar way, which is they don't even explain to you that there are more mechanics, and it's just that by necessity to solve the puzzle, you have to discover mechanics that you didn't know existed at the beginning of the game. And I think that it's obviously it's super well designed. The puzzle design is great. It was incredibly hard as well, and I always love that. And super satisfying to solve. It has a really, really nice look to it. It's like super minimalist, but also like high detail. Which is like, it was just a really interesting game that, again, like I've not seen this implementation in a puzzle game before. So
how many levels were in this game?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. It was another game that I couldn't beat because it was taking me too long on stream, so I'm gonna have to go back and beat it.
That's really neat. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, super good.
I'm about to say, that was one of the it would be really fun, I think, and this is like kind of tertiary to the actual discussion, but I think it would be kind of fun to do some sort of an analysis of all the Jam games, which obviously I'm not going to do manually, but just to see which ones have like similar themes, because I did see one or two games that had mechanics similar-ish to this, but not implemented in the same way. And it's just really interesting that this is such a rare implementation of the Jam theme. And I just think that's really fascinating to think about. So yeah, that's really cool. Okay. The next one on my list, and obviously these aren't ranked or anything like that, but this one is on my list because I described it in the pre-show as criminally underrated. This game has a delightful, like, Yoshi's Island aesthetic, and it's just really fun to play. The whole idea of the game is just that you're a bird that like flutters and glides through the air like around levels, and when you get close enough to your blob rock friend, you can connect together and you can just throw him through obstacles, like solve puzzles and stuff like that. And the overall performance of the game, and when I mean performance, I mean like the levels that they make, were just really fun. Like they had a level that was just bowling. So you just had to like throw the rocks, so that way it knocked down all the pins in one shot to get a strike to leave. And it was just really fun to play. I enjoyed it a lot. The aesthetic was really good. And I think I played it on the first day that I did reviews, and I went back like 4 or 5 days later, and it had only gotten like 4 reviews since I had reviewed it. So it's just like, I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and I thought that its overall rating number did not necessarily reflect the quality of the game. It was quite short, and the designer was in chat when I reviewed it, so he was able to explain some of like their design decisions and stuff like that. But this is another one where like I would really enjoy seeing them take the idea to the extreme, because it is, in my opinion, one of the best implementations of two people together, or two people tied together by a rope. You know?
Nice.
So yeah.
Yet another game that I've never heard of. I love it.
Blobby and Feather. Okay.
Okay, so I guess 16 is next. So this is a game called Gravity is Overrated. This is like, it's funny because this is one of those games where as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, this is the two characters tied together. This is like, a very straightforward interpretation of the theme, which in general I probably wouldn't put a game that's so straightforward and interpretation-wise on my list, but it's so fun, and I couldn't help it. I had so much fun playing the game. Basically, the idea is that you're two astronauts that are tied together, and you spin at a constant speed, and you don't control the spin at all. You just keep spinning, and if you press one mouse button, one of the astronauts sprays, which pushes you. Or if you press the other mouse button, the other astronaut sprays. Yeah, Bogdan, the lists should be public after the stream.
I was about to say, mine is definitely already public, so yeah.
I didn't make mine public in advance to prevent spoilers, but I will make it public after. So yeah, you're just constantly switching back and forth between spraying with one astronaut or another while you're constantly spinning, and you're moving in sort of like, 0G. And the thing that makes it even more interesting is that you can't spray for too long with one astronaut or else you die. So you have to alternate between the two of them, and then you just basically are navigating through these like geometric environments while being limited in the way that you can move. And learning to control the thrust while spinning, it's just such a satisfying, and they did such a good job with the way that the movement feels. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is like the most original concept, but in terms of just like the raw gameplay feel and how fun it was to play, it was one of the most fun games that I played in the jam, so I had to include it.
Excellent. I'm about to say, I don't think I had seen, like, how many games do you think you had seen over the course of your reviews that implemented gravity as their primary tie-in to the theme?
Not that many.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So it's fascinating to see that this made it into your top 20. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. The next game that is on my list is actually one that I was debating very heavily whether or not I wanted to include on my list. I'm not going to lie. I actually kind of don't like this game. It's which is really funny, but let me explain. So I'm not gonna call it by its German name or whatever. It's Rat King, and the overall aesthetic of the Rat King and like the lore of the Rat King is one of my favorites from like folklore in general, and I didn't even think about it in reference to this game jam at all. So the fact that someone thought of it and made like a pretty decent game, I really enjoyed that overall. Like, I just wanted to give them big commendations for that. And the game itself, like the basic principles that the game showcases, where you are a like magic orb, I guess, that when you touch rats, you tie their tails together and you move around like that. And all you're doing is that when you hold space, you take a rat and you start spinning it around you. And then when you let go, the rat is basically a guided missile that you can use the arrow keys in order to like navigate into other like people. And the rats will then jump on them, start biting them until they die. And then when they die, their corpses will attract more rats. So like the basic principle is really good, right? I really enjoyed it. I had a great time playing the first two levels, but then the problem is that the game is a little bit too brutal at the moment. Like in this, and I'm just talking about like execution of controls and stuff like that, because all of the controls are keyboard based. And my God, my kingdom for the ability to guide the rats with my mouse instead, because having to steer one mouse while taking your Rat King nest and like moving it away from enemies is incredibly difficult, which is kind of the point, but also like my brain was exploding while I was playing. So some of the difficulty was a little bit too high, but I loved its interpretation of the theme and the usage of one of my favorite pieces of folklore ever. So I had to include it on my top 20.
It definitely seems very like a very unique interpretation, which is always good. I mean, I love the idea of it being brutal, and I will say that like a lot of arcadey like jam games often end up just being way too hard, but I kind of enjoy that because I'm a sucker for games that kick my ass. And so it sounds very appealing to me. I want to try it now for sure. But again, like, yeah, I love seeing games that don't take the theme in the same way as everyone else.
I would love for you to play this and then just like randomly at some point just message me on Discord and be like, what are you talking about? This game's easy. And I'll be like, what are you talking about? It's so, what about the farmers who like, because like there's an enemy in the game that's like a farmer that throws their pitchfork or whatever, but as soon as they throw it and hit something, they immediately pick it back up to throw it again, and it's like they just shred your Rat King, and I'm like, no. But anyway, it's a very fun game. It's very cool.
All right, so number 15 for me is Piston Knight. I think it's a tragedy that this game is not already on phone. I check my phone every day for a mobile version of this game, and I just wait for it to be a thing. It looks and feels like a very, very high quality phone game. There is like basically nothing wrong with this game at all. It looks great. It feels great. It's extremely satisfying and very difficult. Basically, the concept is it's an auto runner. Your character is always moving to the right at a constant speed, and the little horns on your helmet and your feet, whenever you press up, your horns go shooting up into the ceiling, and whenever you press down, your feet go shooting down into the ground. And whenever your horns hit the ceiling, you're basically piloting a rocket that's moving forward at a constant speed. But when you press into the ceiling, it moves you down, and when you press into the floor, it moves you up. If any part of your pistons or any part of your body hits a wall, then you die, and that's the whole thing. And it's literally just navigating an environment where you're traveling at a constant speed by pressing yourself up and down off of the floors. And they take that mechanic, they don't allow themselves to make the mechanic change whatsoever, but they design levels that use that mechanic in so many like fascinating ways, and it's just so good. Like there's just nothing else I can say about the game. It should already be released. It should already be sold. They don't need to change anything. It's perfect. Just like ship it. If you like sort of like auto running like mobile style games that are just like short, collect all the coins kind of games, like just play it. It's so good. Yeah, I mean they definitely did their heavy lifting on the marketing for it, and I mean they deserve whatever they get for it. I mean, they should really be selling this game already. Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing to say.
I'm about to say that's really cool to hear, and I know I've been saying that a lot. Needless to say, all of these games are really cool, and I'm just gonna echo what you had said earlier. I had not even heard of this game. And just hearing such high praise for a game that I didn't even know existed, I'm now like, oh my goodness, now I gotta check this out. I have like all this stuff I have to do in my free time or in my off time, and now I'm like, all right, but now I gotta put Piston Knight in there. God damn it!
I mean, you gotta try it because like again, like it's a 2-button game, but they like expand on their own mechanic without making the mechanic more complicated, and it's really good. It's just a really good game.
I will definitely check that out. So the next one that was on my list, this one is not exactly the most original. Ejectin' Bomber is basically just Galaga, but more. Because the idea of this game is that it's a shoot 'em up game. It's very pretty, very well done aesthetically. You shoot 'em up. And you know how in Galaga there was that thing where if one of your ships got abducted, a new ship would replace it, and you could shoot the abducting ship to like add a new one, and you would have 2 enemies, or you would have 2 ships shooting at once? This game takes that idea to the umpteenth level, where now it's just a power-up that you can pick up. You just pick up a new ship, and now you're shooting 2, 3, 4 bullets at the same time. And it takes the mechanic just one step further, and at first, like I said, I was like, this is a little derivative, but I like it. It's fun. But then they have this whole thing where normally in shoot 'em ups, you'll have like some sort of a bomb mechanic that will clear the screen of projectiles or enemies, like deal a bunch of damage. In this one, you take one of the ships that is shooting for you, and you just chuck it at the enemy and self-destruct it. So you actively have to choose whether or not you want to have the damage output right now, like there are too many bullets, I need to clear this, or if I want the long-term benefit of having more ships shooting at enemies at one time. And so I really enjoyed this game. I enjoyed playing it like quite a few times on stream, just like looping it over and over. And the main thing that put it on my top tier list was that they have so many just little details that you don't notice when you play the first time, like the sound of you shooting your gun changes and gets like better and more intense the more ships you have shooting at the same time. And the enemies, when you shoot them, sometimes they'll be like magnetized together because they're joined together, haha. But when you have them and you shoot them, they, depending on whether or not you're shooting like a combo, it'll play like a do re mi fa sol la ti do sort of thing as you're shooting them.
Oh, nice.
And it's just really good. Like, the overall presentation was probably one of the highest that I had in the jams, just like by my own personal rating. And I really enjoyed it.
My favorite thing about that game was actually nothing to do with the gameplay whatsoever. I enjoyed playing the game, but the best part was when you get to the boss and there's a like an alert splash screen animation that plays. That was so well made. It's like it's my favorite part of the whole game. Like I love that screen.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's just like, it's so classic and it's so nostalgic, but it's also like, it's super well animated. I mean, like, it was, it's a great, I don't know. I love that. That was like, I was having a good time playing it, and I was like, yeah, this is a cool shoot 'em up, like a nice mechanic, like extra ships, throw the ships, fun, like nice sound design, feels great. And then I get to that screen and I was like, whoa, that is awesome. And then like the boss comes and like the boss fight is fun. But like that screen, like I played the game, I think like 3 times on stream, and I was just like, oh, that screen is like the best part. I love it. It's just like a very nice touch that was completely unnecessary.
About to say, and the fact that it's there just gives you that extra little oomph that I love. So that's really cool.
For sure. Okay, so next on my list is Octopuzzler.
Finally, one that we share.
This is this game is really interesting. First of all, it was made in a custom engine, which again, like, is very rare for a game jam. Not that they made the engine for the jam, but that the game was built in a custom engine that they had already. And it's essentially just, again, a block movement puzzle game, if you're not seeing the theme already of my list. But a game in which you actually program all your movements, and you're stuck with only 3 buttons, but you can program what each of those buttons does when you press it. And you can actually program multiple moves to the same button, and then it will just execute all of those moves in order. And it's just about figuring out how to get from one end of the puzzle to the other by, programming the moves correctly and then pressing them. We can go back through the list real quick at the end. Sure.
I have no problem with that. Yeah.
And there'll definitely be a recorded VOD as well, but I can spin back through the list at the end for sure. So you're programming your moves, but the thing that made this game so good was just this very small touch. And it's something that, like, when you're designing a game, you might think of the most obvious choice in design, and then when you don't do that thing and it works, it's so much more satisfying. And the example of that in Octopuzzler is that you might think, okay, you program what the buttons do, and then you play the whole level. You've programmed what your buttons do, you press them in the order that you're supposed to press them in, it beats the level. But in this game, you can continue programming those buttons to add additional moves to them. You can't delete moves from them, but you can add moves to each button during the time that you're playing the level. And in fact, on some of the later levels, you have to do that. The level is literally impossible unless you realize about halfway through a level that you can continue adding actions to your buttons. And the puzzle design, like the level design, is so good, the way that it introduces that feature slowly. Because I even myself, like right from the beginning of the game, I was like, I totally get how this works. I program all my moves at the start, I press the buttons. And then I got to a level and I stared at it for a long time, and I was like, this level is impossible. Like, how, like, you cannot beat it with these 3 buttons from the start. It's just, there's no way. And then I slowly, it dawned on me that I was like, oh, if I only assign 1 move to this button for now, and then get about halfway through the level and then assign more moves to that button, then I can beat it. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And like, this is one of those games where I'm like, please, designer, go off and make 100 more levels and come back to me. Thank you very much for your time. Like, I just want to keep playing this game, and it's so sad to me that it's so short, because it's really good. The aesthetic is like very unique. Again, it being in a custom engine always makes it feel a little bit more like indie in like a satisfying way, because it doesn't feel like it just works like all the other engines work. And yeah, I mean, everything about it's super unique. I love it.
And just the basic principle of you only have 3 buttons and you choose to link the commands as you're like doing the level or figuring out the level. is so expandable, like as you said, because not only is it just like do more levels and be more creative, because when you're playing the game, it has this like Windows 95 aesthetic going on, and the window that you start off with is like movements, right? It's like, it's, you know, move left, move right, dash up, dash left, and those are all really good. But then you could imagine in like a quote unquote full version of this game, they have other stuff where it's like activate switch or jump or what have you, and it's like it's so good. And then, as you described, I was going to describe it, or I was going to mention it if you didn't, that moment where you figure out, like, oh, you can change the commands in the middle of execution is such a rewarding aha moment. Yeah. It's so good.
And that's what I was saying, is it's like, it's almost like when you're designing the game, you're like, you know, the obvious choice in design is to not do that. It's just, oh, program your moves and then play the level. But then, like, the fact that they made the decision to not restrict you in that way is like, it's a little bit unnerving when you're designing a level, because then it means that the player has more freedom, which means they're more likely to find an unintended solution that maybe makes the level more trivial. But the levels are very well designed and avoid that in a great way. And yeah, I mean, it's just a super well made game. I loved it.
All right, coolio. So, kind of springboarding in a way that I didn't anticipate, but kind of springboarding off of that same like Windows 95, Windows Vista kind of aesthetic, I have Runner OS on my list. This game was fascinating.
Scroll down like the tiniest bit.
The tiniest bit. I just don't want to. I just don't want to spoil a game that's on my top 5.
No, just a little bit more. Just a couple clicks. Yeah. One more. There you go.
All right, cool. All right, excellent. So, Runner OS is a really interesting game. At first, when you start playing it, it simulates like a Windows Vista desktop, right? And the game that you're playing is a window on the monitor that you're playing. And at first, it just seems like your regular puzzle platformer. You jump, you move, you jump over spikes, and it's like, okay, that's fine. But then you get to this one part, and it's this giant vertical wall, and there's literally no way you can get across it. But there's this NPC that's like in the background. He's like, I don't know, maybe try one of the other windows that's around the screen. And lo and behold, there's been windows this entire time around the screen, and one of them has a black hole, just like a GIF of a black hole spinning. And by taking that window and moving it to the cardinal directions of the screen, you shift the gravity of the game. So by shifting it to the right, I am now walking up the wall, or by shifting it to the ceiling, I just fall all the way up instead. Sure. And you start using that in ways where it's just like, I'm not even walking around the levels anymore. I am just taking the window and like flying myself around the level, and it's so cool. And then they have other ones where like there's invisible lasers and invisible like enemies at one point, and use this other window, which is quite small compared to the main screen, and you drag it to see where the invisible enemies are so you can maneuver around them and stuff like that. So the idea of multiple different windows joining together to be the actual mechanics of the game was so good. And then the overall aesthetic of the game, if you ever check it out, is very like early age Newgrounds style, like just in aesthetic. And it was really good, and I just enjoyed playing it, and I still haven't beat it, but I promise I will at some point.
Oh, that sounds like my kind of thing. I just like had a really good idea for a game just by listening to you talk about how that game works. So I'm like, I already like want to jump into that game and play it and get more ideas, because I really like the idea of that. I'm always like a sucker for those like desktop games where it's like the game takes place in the desktop of a computer. I don't know why I like that so much, but I never get sick of it.
Because it's a weird like fourth wall break that's not a fourth wall break, you know. It's so fun to encounter.
Well, and that was the other thing I should have said about Octopuzzler before I move on, is that Octopuzzler has 2 completely different art styles. Like, it has a art style of the scene, and then inside the scene is the camera, or the screen of the computer, which has a completely different art style. And like, you know, again, like, you know, that it's not just one art style that's, you know, consistent across the whole game. It's 2 completely different art styles. Super cool. Did you see Abra Click, if you like that kind of stuff?
Did you?
That was directed at you. No, I've never heard of it.
I have never heard at it either. So I will have to check that out. I'll have to ping myself later to remember to check out Abra Click.
Nice. Another one of those games in an OS style. Last year for GMTK, I played it was just like a completely genius OS game that was like, it was like an almost WarioWare style like time management game where you just have pop-ups that you consistently have to deal with.
Yeah.
And every pop-up is like its own little game that you have to play to get it to go away. And it was like so fun. I remember I played it off stream for hours because I was just like, there wasn't even that much in the game, like in the jam version, but it was just such a fun like experience of just like, oh, I'm just looking at a desktop, and then there's like a little pop-up that's like, oh, scroll this bar over to the right to close the window, and then there's another one which is like spin this wheel thing. Like I don't even remember what all the ones. Yeah, solving captchas. Yeah, exactly. But that game was so fun. I loved that game.
I love that concept, and I'll have to have you like, well, because you said it was for last year's game jam, so hopefully I'll be able to find it. But yeah,
I'll try.
Could you imagine, just like to break the wall here a little bit, could you imagine if that's how pop-ups worked in real life, where it's not like you can just like you don't just task manager close them. It's like the thing was like, all right, now make a perfect circle in order to close the pop-up ad. God, that'd be so terrible. All right, I gotta scroll down quickly to skip. You didn't see anything. Oh shit, there's actually a lot of stuff. Never mind. A lot of my top 5 are starting to show up. Just ignore them. All right, we'll be back later.
You could have reordered your list.
I can't on this. I don't know how to do it on this. I don't know how to do it on the app. So
that's all right. So my next game on the list is Pleasant. Wait, what was it? What's it called in English again? You said it.
A pleasant. What was it? It was a pleasant walk beneath the stars.
Sure, that one. So this game was also on Obo's list at the start. I also loved this game. I'm not going to say it in French. Super gorgeous art style, the sound design, the music, the fact that the sounds that play in the game are in the same key as the music is super pleasing to the ears. There's just like, it's just such a well polished experience. It's a puzzle game, but it's not like a challenging puzzle game. And normally, like, I would be maybe almost like bored by how easy the puzzles are in the game. But because of the game feel and the sound design, it's just such a pleasant experience the entire time. And my favorite part by far, just to mention something that you didn't mention in your review of it, was that the level select screen has multiple paths to take through it because of the fact that the level select screen is also a constellation where you're connecting stars from one to another. And as a result, there are portions of the level select screen with levels that you can just completely skip because of the way that the paths are drawn. And I mean, of course, you're gonna play all the levels because the game is great. But like, I could easily see the game, everything you're doing on stream is like is visible on my stream, right?
I got a message saying, Zach, you're an idiot. You can definitely reorganize stuff. So I'm gonna do that real quick.
Okay, I can hide your stream while you do it.
I just didn't want to interrupt you. You were on a roll.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that like the level select screen having multiple paths by being able to connect the levels together means that like if they were to expand that game and make several more levels, that in future level select screens they could have the core path that get from one into the other, and then have a bunch of like harder puzzles that are sort of skippable by the very nature of the way the level select screen works. And I think that's brilliant. Like I love that the level select is like the same puzzle as the puzzles themselves, and like that is super cool.
What an excellent like continue like not even reinterpretation, but just like an extant version of their mechanic just applied more, because I didn't even notice that. Like when I played it, I just connected to whatever was the nearest dot, so I didn't even really think about it, and that's so good.
Yeah, it is really good. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to like spend too much time on it because you already talked about it. You want me to turn? Okay, sure thing. I turned them down a little bit earlier because it looked like they were peaking a bit, but I can turn them up.
Oh, is it me? Yeah, I don't know. I have problems with my audio balancing. This is something I'm just gonna have to get used to, like, over time. I've only been streaming for like a year, but my voice is really dynamic. I can go from being really quiet to really loud, and my mic does not know how to handle it. So, all right, there we go. I should be all set. Everything should be all organized.
let's bring you back. Boop. Okay.
Here we go.
Nice.
Refresh.
Well done.
There we go. Voila.
Oh shoot! I'm
Okay.
making all my windows back. Okay, cool. So yeah, like I said, I didn't have much more to say. I just wanted to add on that bit about the level select screen.
Excellent. Good. Okay. So the next game that's on my list, I talked about it yesterday on stream, and I don't think you actually saw it. I think you left chat before I got a chance to play it, but this is one of the games that I consider to be like at least my sleeper hit of the jam, just in the sense of I didn't see a lot of people talking about it. I didn't see it having like a terrible amount of ratings or like a terrible lot of ratings. But Dwarves Must Together is a really awkward title to say, actually. But the base,
right just then.
well, no, I know, but that's because I was like staring at the screen, like, okay, I have to say this right. But
you didn't even say it right.
I
when
did.
You were talking about how it's
Must
hard to
Dwarves
say
Together.
right.
God damn it, I'm an idiot. Point proven.
That's a testament to how hard it is to say, I guess.
Moving on. We're moving on. Anyway, this game was really fun because the basic mechanics of how the puzzles work was actually pretty simple. You have 1 to 5 dwarves that you pick up, and the dwarves are always... oh, Retro Mike's in my chat. Hello, Retro Mike. But you have 1 to 5 dwarves, and the dwarves, you can hit space to move them horizontally or vertically. Like, you just switch between the two positions. And you use this in puzzles to, like, get over ledges or catch ledges as you're jumping. But there's, like, this really interesting thing where the more you, or the more enemies you pick, or more dwarves that you pick up, the heavier you get. So when you bounce off of spring pads, you jump, like, lower and lower each time. And that's all well and good. That's just kind of fun. Ignore strange sounds you might hear. The main thing that put Must Dwarves Together on my list was the fact that each dwarf has an instrument that it plays. And as you get near and pick up the dwarves, new tracks of the main theme add together.
Oh, I always love that.
It's so, like, I didn't get to see that a lot used in this game jam. Must Dwarves Together was the first one that I had encountered with that. And then also the musical theme that plays throughout the game was just also really good. And so it's
that
just...
game we were just talking about does that too. The game that I'll never remember what it is in English. That game also has a progressive soundtrack. Like, the further you get into the game, the more instruments get added.
Really? The Pleasant Walk Beneath the Stars?
Yeah, that one.
Wow. Okay, I didn't even notice that while I played it. But yeah, that's still really cool. I just really like the idea of the music changing in line with the gameplay. I thought it was really cool.
Nice. Next is Static Cling. I can't say that, like, I don't think too many people are going to be surprised to see this one on my list. It's just an extremely impressive game. I think it was made by a team of 10, and it shows that they are clearly, like, very professional at what they do. This game is, essentially ready for release. Super polished, incredible art style and animations. I actually believe that the marketing art is worse than the way the game actually looks. And in fact,
really,
when
okay,
I first
that's
saw
a bold
this,
statement.
I was not even really, like, that attracted to it by the look of the marketing. But then when I played it, I was like, oh, this game looks so good. They really should have just included an image of the game, because, to be honest, the game looks better than the marketing art for the game. And the mechanics are genius. There's so many different ones in the game. There's one thing I don't like about the game, but that's often what you find with, like, a game that feels so good, is that there might be just, like, one thing that kind of takes you out of it. But for the most part, yeah, this is just a super impressive accomplishment in 48 hours. And in fact, I clicked on the team that made this, Team Bugulon, and looked at their itch page, and they made a game last year that was called, I think it was called Tricky Keys. And that, or it was either Tricky Keys or Sticky Keys. I can't remember what the name of it was. But I remember playing that game on stream, and it was like one of the most hype games of like everybody watching me because it was so hard, and the whole team was there watching me, like cheering me on, and like I guess I was like one of the few people who streamed it that actually beat it, and it was such a like an amazing memory of last year's jam. And I was like, oh, of course these guys made that game, because this game is also just so good. And yeah, I mean, I honestly like, I know that we are planning on talking about what games we think are, you know, likely to win. I definitely think that like this game I mean, it certainly is in the top 100, the top 20, or whatever top list they're going to have.
There is no way on God's green earth that Static Cling doesn't make it into Mark Brown's video.
Yeah, 100%. If you like platformers and you like puzzle games, this game is like already, you know, ready to be shipped. I mean,
yeah, I was just about to call you on that. I was like, is it a platformer? And then I thought about it for a second. I was like, oh, he's absolutely right. It's definitely a platformer because you have the little robot suits.
It's a platformer in a very weird way, and the platforming is just used as like a means to an end. It's not even a platformer in the sense that like you platform from the beginning to the end. You just use platforming as a tool to navigate, which is just a really interesting concept.
It was it was really interesting because Static Cling, I ended up playing it because I was watching one of your VODs, and Kay's, the person who made another game that we're definitely going to be talking about eventually, they recommended it, and I was like, oh, let me check it out. And I actually have the exact opposite response to the like title art that they used, because that just reminds me, it just fills me with such wonderful feelings of like, dude, this feels like a classic like GBA DS game. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and immediately I was like, oh, I gotta play this. And then I did, and I was glad that I did. So yeah, very good game.
Yeah, I don't think that the marketing art is bad. I just think that the game looks significantly better than the art that they used to market it.
Oh, sure. I believe that, yeah. All right, cool. So the next one that I had, spoilers, we might be talking about Static Cling again later, but the next game on my list was Rickshaw's Radical Rickshaw. The game, it's basically just Crazy Taxi, but the overall, they have like a low res filter over the game, and everything in the level is physics enabled. So while you're running around just picking up people, you're just like throwing tables into the air, knocking over light posts, like cars are flipping over sideways. And when you pick people up, it's not just that you put them in the back of your rickshaw, they grab onto the legs of the previous person, and you end up making this big chain, like as you're running around the level. And it's so good. And they have like voice acting in the game too, but it's clearly just the people who made the game doing silly voices. Because it's like, the first time we played this, I was on stream with friends, and we were all just chilling out, just talking. And the second that I pick up the first person, it was this old lady who goes, oh no, not Rickshaw's Radical Rickshaw. And I just cracked up laughing, because I was like, that's so good. And the whole game has like this low res filter to make it seem like it's like a PS2 game, and it was very good overall. Very simple, well done execution of a decent premise that I really enjoyed. So yeah, it made it onto my top 20.
I haven't heard of it, but I have to say that without a doubt, that's the best name of a game in the jam for sure.
Rickshaw's Radical Rickshaw.
Radical Rickshaw is a brilliant name. I'm obsessed with it. I'll definitely play it. I was a huge Crazy Taxi fan like back in the day, so that's exciting.
All right, if you're a huge Crazy Taxi fan, you will definitely do better than I did. I found the game to be incredibly difficult just because I didn't know where the hell I was going in the level. But yeah, you'll have a good time with this. It was a very good game.
Exciting. Okay, so next for me is this game called Lunk Tales. This game is actually like criminally underrated in the jam. I think it only has like 20 ratings.
Oh, that's weird.
This game is okay. I will say that I should preface to say that this game does have soft locks in it, which is unfortunate, but it's a jam game. You know, give them a break. It does have soft locks in it, but aside from that, essentially it's a sliding puzzle game where, you know, when you press a direction, you slide until you hit a wall. And the goal of the game is to save a princess in a castle. Each screen that you enter has a cutscene that plays, and the cutscene writing is very funny. It often like makes jokes about itself, about the pointlessness of what you're doing. And oftentimes, if you're doing actions that maybe go in counter to your quest, the game wonders what the heck you're doing and why you're doing it. And not only that, but in addition to this just being a slide movement game, that there are items which will also be in some of the rooms that will slide with you, and then you can grab them and you can combine them together to make them into new items. And that's sort of the whole point of the game, is to traverse these puzzle rooms by sliding around, combining items together, using them to cross to create bridges, and using them to swing swords at enemies and cut down wood. And it's like a really, really cool interpretation of a sliding puzzle game. But by far my favorite thing about this game is that it has multiple endings, like Reventure style, for anyone who's ever played Reventure, where there is a main ending to the game, but there are multiple other ways to end the game, and the endings, some of the other endings are hilarious. Just to give one example, at the very start of the game, the cutscene is telling you to travel north to save the princess, but in the first room, it's you and a key and a locked door at the top of the room and a locked door at the bottom. If you take the locked door at the bottom, you go into the next room and it says, instead of going north, he decided to go south. Why not? And then if you leave that room, you get an end game cutscene that's like, he decided that saving the princess was boring and pointless and just decided not to do it anyway. And it's just like, it's so funny, like, to have this, like, just an ending. You can just leave the game right at the start, and then like the cutscene that plays with it is so funny. And there's so many other of those little secret hidden endings in the game that are just hysterically funny. And I won't spoil the ending, but the ending is probably the best part of the whole game, if you can get to it without softlocks. Which, yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it has softlocks, but I do think that this game is great. I do think it's like criminally underrated for the jam.
So I also checked out Lung Tales. And I will embarrassingly admit that it was me and my friend Saba. She's much better at puzzles than I am because she has like the patience to like actually pay attention. And we were doing that first room where you had to get the key to the door. And we were doing it under the assumption that the game was just sliding, right? Just hitting a button and everything in the room would slide. So we spent, I want to say, a good 20, maybe 25 minutes just trying to figure out how to get both me and the key to be situated in front of the door so I could unlock it without realizing that you could grab stuff.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who didn't realize that you could grab things, and that sort of makes the game impossible.
It was because at first I was like, dude, this is freaking, what is this? And I was going nuts. And then as soon as I don't even remember who it was, I think it was I'm Dying, was in chat and was like, hey, you can grab stuff with E, right? And I was like, you're shitting me. And within 2 seconds, I solved that first room, and I was like, oh my God. And so, like, I didn't get nearly as far into that game as I would like to have had because, I cut it short with my own stupidity. But that's really cool. It was a really interesting interpretation because not only is it just the block sliding puzzle, as you says, it's also just like a narrative RPG kind of.
Yeah, and the way that the blocks combine to make new blocks is also like a very cool mechanic in this game that is somewhat unassuming in its presentation. It actually has some depth to it that is sort of like surprising. Yeah, really fun.
All right, cool. So the next one that was on my list is Thinking with Boxes. Now, Thinking with Boxes is one of the ones I kind of talked about it previously, where I talked about best in category. There were so many games that were a cube that connects to another cube, and then you move all of them as one unit. Obviously, there's a certain other one that kind of supersedes this category that I won't be talking about just quite yet. But in this particular case, Thinking with Boxes takes the basic premise and executes it almost flawlessly. It's a very small window when you play it, and I'll explain why in a minute. But when you're playing the game, you're just a box that can move around. You have, free reign to move around as much as you want. As soon as you move orthogonal to another box, you link up together, and that's, that's video games, baby. But you then start picking up other boxes like gravity boxes, where it will just flip your gravity. So now you're on the ceiling, or double jump, or wall jump, and it's just like movement boxes. But then not only do you have the movement boxes that you can contend with, some levels have like, I would just call them buzzsaws, I guess, where you have to destroy your boxes you have to activate each buzzsaw at least once in order to leave. And so like you'll have your gravity box, for example, and you shove it into a buzzsaw, and now obviously gravity's back to normal, and you're like, oh my god, I have to execute this in this particular way in order to get this to work, and it's really cool. But the main thing, because it's literally the only, out of the 170 some odd games that I reviewed, it's the only game that I played that has a version for Game Boy Advance.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. If you go to the downloads page for Thinking with Boxes, they have PC, they have Mac, they have like the different versions for like whatever bit operating system you're running. And then at the very bottom, they just have one for Game Boy Advance where if you download it, put it onto a cartridge and put it into your Game Boy, you can play Thinking with Boxes on your Game Boy Advance. And that's incredible.
Like, I mean, yeah, that's awesome, but like, also, why?
I don't know. It's just so cool. I thought it was like
the time. I don't know how much time they spent getting that to work, but like, I just can't. No.
Like, just think about that. Think about the time and dedication that you would need to have in order to get that working, right? To get an export that would theoretically work on Game Boy Advance, and then the game is also good.
My guess is that these people design games to be played on Game Boy regularly, and that it was something that they knew how to do very well, because you wouldn't just do that for no reason. Like you would do it because you like playing games on Game Boy Advance. Like,
sure, yeah.
I'm just like, I'm just like, man, that the time that it must have taken just to do that, and then for the sake of like nobody being able to play it in that format, it's just like, why? But that's super cool. I mean, yeah, that's awesome that they did that.
It was so ballsy that I had to be like, I love it, because also the game was just good. So there you go.
Solo dev who has their own engine that builds to GBA. Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense, but still really cool.
Yeah. All right. So my next game is Side by Size. I have to be careful when I say that name out loud because it's another tricky one. So this is another game where you slide around in a grid and you solve puzzles. It's the first one of its kind in my list, I swear. But this game has like a really, really interesting mechanic. Again, like a mechanic that I have not really seen before, which is that there are obstacles in the levels which change their size based on when you take damage versus when you heal. So if you heal for 1 point of health, then the boxes get bigger in the room and they're harder to get around. And if you take damage, then they get smaller. And so the puzzles are about figuring out ways to take damage so that you won't die, but that the obstacles will be small enough that you can get around them. And it's a super like unique. It has like an almost like Baba Is You feel to it, even though like it's not really like Baba Is You, but like the art style is obviously very reminiscent. And I think I just thought it was a really cool game. That it was pretty clear that some of the puzzles like had some unintended solutions that made the puzzles like very trivial to solve. But that being said, like the mechanic was executed very well. It actually introduces new mechanics as you go through the levels. It has quite a lot of levels for a jam game. And it's just a super like fun mechanic to play with that really surprised me. I, again, have not really seen something like this before, where your health is joined with the obstacles that you're trying to navigate. I mean, it's more advantageous to take damage than to heal. It was a really, really cool puzzle game. Definitely recommend it for people who like these kinds of games.
I think one of my favorite things about going through this list with you is that obviously, as you've made jokes about, you have a lot of like block sliding puzzles on this, but seeing the different interpretations and interesting like nuances that people put on the block sliding, I guess, genre is really interesting to hear, because this one, despite fundamentally being, you know, kind of similar to, you know, Lunk Tales and like other ones that you've shown, is different enough according to your description to be like, oh yeah, that's really interesting and I want to play that. So that's really cool.
I didn't want to put two games that were the same on my list, and yet a lot of the games on my list are blocks and grids. And I just really like that kind of puzzle. But yeah, I mean, I really focused on making sure that the games I picked did something that made them stand out. And I mean, this game definitely fits the bill for that. And I really enjoyed playing it a lot.
It's pretty neato. All right. So We are getting towards the end-ish of the list, so pretty soon we're gonna have to start actually discussing our like top games. So I'm not at my top 5 yet, obviously, but I'm just looking at the list and I'm realizing that we're getting there. So
What are we at?
we are at, so it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 9 left.
Okay.
All right. So my next game is Slimy Slimes. This was another one that was just, it had a really good execution, and by God, I want to see this game have like full release status. You know what I mean? And not this game, but like when I mean full release status, just with more levels, a few more mechanics, because the basic principle of this game is so good. The idea of you play as a giant ball of slime, and by hitting E, you can split into 2 smaller half-size balls of slime, and you can keep doing that until you're like teeny tiny, and you're just like running around the level like a swarm of trash slime. But then, if you're next to each other, if you're in contact with your fellow slime, you can hit E, and you can rejoin to get bigger. So, like, there were levels that needed this, where, like, there'd be a tiny, tiny little space, so you had to split all the way down. But then on the other side, you needed to jump high enough in order to get up a cliff. So when you got to the other side, you had to rejoin together. And it was really cool and really well done. There was obviously some problems with, like, the soft body physics, where sometimes I would just get completely obliterated and, like, shoved into a wall so I couldn't move and I had to reset. But that's what we have reset buttons for, you know? That's totally fine.
Almost every soft body physics game has those kinds of bugs in them.
Right, exactly.
There's tons of games, even like, you know, professionally released and published games that have those same kinds of bugs.
Right.
Yeah, there was somebody on stream who was talking about they were making a joke that this particular game jam was like the year of the slime. That there's just like an absurd amount of games about slimes in this jam, apparently. I actually didn't see, in fact, I don't even think I played a single slime game, but then I was watching another streamer who streamed like 6 slime games in a row. I don't know how that happens, but I did see Slimy Slimes played. I haven't played it myself, but I did watch it played, and
I think you watched me play it, didn't you?
Probably. I mean, I think I've seen more than one person play this game, but I've seen a lot of slime games, and yeah, this one looked really, really nice. I really like. I mean, obviously they just use like existing soft body physics, but it just looks really good. Like it very satisfying to watch.
Yeah, I just had a whale of a time with it, so I enjoyed it very, very thoroughly. All right, on to you, sir.
All right, so my next game is this is the game we were talking about earlier.
There you go. It did make it onto your list. That's a very good game.
Yeah. So this game is about firing an arrow from a bow. But unlike in most situations where you fire an arrow, the bow itself is attached to the arrow. So whenever you fire it, the bow just leaves your hands and travels with the arrow. And then the arrow will stick into a wall inevitably, and then the bow will just swing, and you can grab onto it and use it as a swing. And it's really, really like surprise. Like I honestly, like when I saw this picture, I didn't think much of it. But when you get into it, it's actually got like a really nice atmosphere. The look of it is like really striking. It's like a mostly dark, like almost black and white aesthetic, but with like a lot of like red thrown in that like really like pops in the art style. And then the mechanic itself feels so good. Like the way that the bow swings on the arrow, the way that it looks when the arrow like leaves and then your bow just leaves with it. It just looks so good. And then all of that to the side, it is hysterically funny when you accidentally fire your arrow off screen and you just watch your bow leave you and it just travels off. There was one moment in my playthrough where I had to just like put my hands down and just laugh my ass off for like 10 seconds because I had just fired it off into the distance and my bow was just gone. And it was like my favorite moment of the whole thing. But yeah, super cool. I mean, obviously like things tied together. It's not like the most original, but the fact that it was a bow tied to an arrow and the fact that it like inverts your expectation of what happens when you fire an arrow was very cool. And then the fact that it's not only used as a weapon in the game, but also used as like a tool for platforming is really satisfying. Like I could easily see this game becoming like a very large scale, like Metroidvania game.
Right.
And again, like the the atmosphere was so powerful. Like, even though it did feel a little bit silly, but the way the mechanics worked, the art style made it feel very like atmospheric, and like I actually was interested in the world. Like, it's always impressive to me when a jam game can actually like have a world building feel, even though it was made in 48 hours. Like, I was actually invested in the world, and I wanted to know like where it was going to go. And of course, it just ends in sort of like a not like the most exciting way because it's a jam game, but like I could see this game growing into something really big and like very, very good. It already feels great.
You touched on it slightly because I agree. This game was also very good, and it was just barely not on my list of top 20. But one of my favorite things about this as well was that they have like the intro cutscene, and you talked about it with like the world that you get invested in. They have an intro cutscene, and like a giant fuck you eyeball just like kidnaps your dog, and that's like what you're doing. The whole game is you're trying to go rescue your dog, and it's just like, that's so good. I'm already invested, and then the game was also good in and of itself. So very, very good game. Aquila was very good.
Yeah, I loved it.
All right. Moving on. We don't really have a whole lot to talk about because we already talked about this game. But next on my list was Octopuzzler. Octopuzzler, we already talked about it. Great game, great aesthetic, a brilliant use of mechanics. I really enjoyed it. It was just this year's Game Jam. I don't know how many. I don't exactly remember how many submissions were in last year's Game Jam, but like, man, there's just so much talent and just brilliance that just bubbles to the surface with these sort of things. And just Octopuzzler is one of those ones where it's just like, I mean, obviously I could have just did like a top 10 and not a top 20, but like, it's impossible to look at this jam, not look at Octopuzzler and be like, that is a brilliant interpretation of the theme. Congratulations. Big thumbs up.
Yeah, so, yeah. Great game.
And yeah.
Okay, so then next on my list is UI Warrior. So this game was jam nostalgia for me because there was a really fantastic game I played in the jam last year for Out of Control, where in that game you had your buttons that represented your movement controls on the screen as objects that you could then remove from your controls and place them as platforms that you could jump on. But that when you took them out of your controls, that they no longer were controls that you could use. So you could take your left arrow away and use it as a platform, but then you couldn't go left anymore. And then you could put it back once you had used it as a platform so that you could go left again. And so when I played this game, I was like, oh, like this reminds me so much of that game that I love so much. And I don't think that this game is actually derivative of that concept, because I do think that like this game does a lot of things that game didn't do. But the best part about this game is that the tutorial, because the tutorial it's so genius the way that they set this up. The very first room, it's just a wall that is clearly too tall for you to climb. And there's a sign, and you walk over to the sign, and when you read it, there's a big window that pops up on the screen that explains, like, you know, how the game works. And then you can just click the window that's explaining how the game works and place it on the ground and then use it to climb the wall. And it just feels like so good. It's like the best tutorial for a game. Yeah, and Bogdan's pointing out the game I mentioned was in top 20 last year. This UI Warrior game, like, while its presentation is not that impressive, like the characters and the character that you play as and the enemies per se are pretty simplistic in style, but the way that it feels to use the UI in the game as a mechanic, like, it just feels so good. Like, they executed it very, very well. And there's a lot of like clever ways, considering how short the game is. They use the UI as a mechanic in a very cool way.
Agreed. Yeah.
Super fun.
We played UI Warrior on stream as well, and it was one of those things where I was a little strict for the first few days on like, how is this joined together? And I was in a call of like 3 or 4 people, and I was playing it, and I was like, man, this game's really good, but how is this joined together? And one of my friends goes, well, your UI is joining the gameplay, because normally UI just responds to the gameplay, which, as you said, was also utilized in that other game for the previous Game Jam. And I thought about that, and I had like the Galaxy brain meme moment of like, oh my god, that's so genius. And it was really good. Yeah Very, very good interpretation of theme. All right, so next on my list was We Are a Dragon. This game was delightful. If you ever go back and end up playing it, this game just has such an adorable aesthetic that I instantly fell in love with. And this is the game that I consider best in category for two different characters that are just kind of fused together that you're controlling at the same time. Because the whole idea, it's a very simple premise for a game. There are enemies that are coming to your two piles of gold that you have on your left and your right. And the two dragons, you control them. They have the same body. And the red one shoots fireballs that go, pretty far. And then the yellow one has a continuous lightning beam that you can like wiggle back and forth, but it's very short range. So you have this, and originally I was playing it and I was like, man, this is like kind of hard to like control, because you could shoot up, you could shoot right, or you could shoot diagonal if you hold both. And at first I was like, this is a little complicated, because it's like a lot to like think of. But then after just playing the game like 2 or 3 times, immediately like my brain started like interpolating and I was playing it properly. And it was just really fun to play. You could also hit space to just flip your characters. So if I wanted the lightning to be on this side to clear like a bunch of enemies really quickly, I could just flip, and then the controls also flipped. So now A and S, which were the red dragon's controls, are now the yellow dragon's controls. It was just a really delightful, concise execution of the game, of the theme of the jam just being joined together. So yeah.
Oh, sorry, I had to like run away in the middle of that, but that was perfect timing.
Nah, I'm about to say, if I'm good at anything, it's gaffing. So
yeah. And I did play that game, and I also thought it was really enjoyable, so it was a perfect time for me to run away. Okay.
Yeah.
So the next game on my list, oh my gosh, we're getting into this. This is where things got really difficult for me because I was trying to put these games in an order, and oh my gosh, from this game on, it's like these are like not just some of the best jam games I've played, but just some of the best games I've played in general in this category. So this one is called A Monster Snowball. It's a play on the name of the game A Monster's Expedition, which was just recently released by the team who made great games like Cosmic Express and A Good Snowman is Hard to Build, I think is what it's called. And basically that team, they make they just make games with extremely simple mechanics that turn into extremely hard puzzles. They're all clearly like inspired by games like Steven Sausage Roll, where like the mechanic space is very small, but the puzzle space is very large. And this game captures the feel of A Monster's Expedition pretty much perfectly. In A Monster's Expedition, you're traveling from island to island, and you're using trees to create bridges between the islands and the water. And all you do in that game is push trees over and roll them around. But somehow that game just expands and expands and expands on this like very, very simple mechanic. In A Monster Snowball, you're doing the same thing, except you're just pushing snowballs into the water to create bridges between the islands. And this game does 2 things masterfully. The first is that the entire game takes place on a single screen, and the camera moves around and follows the character. And at the very start of the game, you're right next to the end, but you can't reach it. And you have to travel through this entire world, which is all on one screen with like a panning camera to get to the end. And then the second thing it does masterfully is the design of each little island puzzle, because each new little island is just like a different sort of micro puzzle to get to the next island. Again, they expand on what seems like an even simpler mechanic than pushing over trees, and in again like very shocking ways. I don't know how they made this game so fast. It's like this is a game with like the level design quality in this game is something that I would think it would take a year to make. I have no clue how they did it. It's one of the most like well executed games of its genre that I've seen, not just for a jam, but in general. If you like super, super hard pushing puzzle games, this game really, really does something very impressive. Just be prepared to get absolutely destroyed by it because it's so hard. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
I'm about to say, once again, this is another one that I had just not heard of at all. Like, I had not seen it, not heard of it, but that seems 1000% up my alley, and I will definitely check that out. That's really cool. So I think that so for you, I think that means that there's only 6 left, right?
I guess so.
Okay, because the game I'm about to cover is my last one of my, like, quote unquote second place tie for 15.
Right. Right.
Or other
so
way
if it's
around.
your 6th, then the next one will be my 6th.
Yeah. So there were only a very few games in this jam that utilized the interesting aesthetic of taking letters and combining them in interesting ways in order to create something new. So Glob was actually one of the very first games that I played when I started this review season, and it's such a delightful execution of it. Like, it feels like it could be an app for, like, the Wii Shop channel. You know what I mean? Like, way back then. The basic premise of the game, as you can kind of see executed pretty well, or depicted pretty well in its art, was that you use the 26 letters of the alphabet, and by spinning and enlarging or shrinking them, you just make art. And the actual game is how accurately you're able to, depict that art with your letters. And then there's even a second layer of thing, which is very similar to someone else who made a game like this, where you can submit your own designs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very good, and it leads to a lot of people doing a lot of really creative stuff.
So what you're saying is that Glob is just better than our game.
I'm not saying, well, so
seems like it.
so the thing that's really interesting, and obviously we'll get to that at some point, was that Glob is not better than Factorio, God damn it, Factory. Was that? Shut up, everybody! Shut up. We made mistakes.
That's our fault, not yours. That's our fault.
It's just that it's so interesting because both games have the same fundamental premise of taking parts to make something new and using letters as a medium, but they're executed in such different ways. And while I really enjoyed Glob, I had a wonderful time playing it. I am not actually a very artsy type of person, so I couldn't necessarily do some of the more difficult levels that users created.
Right.
Factory and Glob are both incredible, TBH. 1000%. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at here. These were two games that executed on a central premise in very different ways, and both of them did it very well. The only reason that this isn't on my top 5 is that I am a little bit more attuned to doing, factory-based mechanics as opposed to art-based mechanics, but that's just me.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you to the people in chat who are saying nice things about Factory. I really appreciate that. Second of all, I have to admit something somewhat embarrassing, which is so the last game, this game that I showed last, the Monster Snowball, was on Kaze's list of the best games in their opinion about the jam. And their list is very short. It only has, I think, 6 games on it.
Really?
And Factory is on there, which I just am so grateful that he honestly thinks that highly of our game. But Glob is also on there. And I was looking at Kaze's list because, I have a lot of respect for Kaze as a developer, and I think that their opinions are probably going to be in line with mine. So I was like, I want to play the games in their list. And that's how I found a Monster Snowball. That's how I found a couple of other games that I put on my list. And then I saw Glob, and I looked at the picture, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, I got to play that. And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't play this, because I think this game is going to make me feel bad, because I think this game might be what we did, but like maybe better. And I was like, I don't want to see this game. Like I never clicked on it. I never played it, because I was like, you know what? If this game is like similar to ours, it's going to make me feel bad, because I'm like, we thought we were trying to do something very original, and then it's like, oh, here's another game about putting letters together and rotating them to make other things. And I was
think of it this way, right? There were almost 6,000 submissions, and I can think of like 3 games that use this premise, so it's pretty original. It's pretty good. Like it's almost as unfair as saying like basketball and soccer are the same, right? Because sure, they both use balls that you're trying to get to a location, but they're very different games fundamentally. Right. And that's exactly the same thing with Glob and Factory. So yeah.
But no, I think it is super cool that they made a game with that concept. I love that there is a game that I guess like according to Moriguma is going to be like competing with ours. I think that's awesome. Like I love the idea of competing with any game. I mean, like we don't ever imagine that that's going to be the case. So that's super cool. I just was terrified to play it because I was like, if I see a game that just like totally blows us out of the water, like I'm just gonna feel bad. So I just avoided it altogether.
Real quick before we move on to the next game, do you still have a list or the URL link to Kaze's top list? Do you have that anywhere?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's in my feed on itch. Yeah.
I'm about to say because I would like to check that out at some point because obviously Kaze was the one who recommended Static Cling. So
here, I can post it in chat right now. Actually, it's very easy for me to get to. With a smaller window, it may not be easy to get to. Where's the feed button? Oh, there it is. Here it is. Yeah, their collection has. Okay, so they've added. Wait, this is not the collection. What did I just click on? Here it is. Okay, so it has 6 games in it, and here it is. I'll post it in chat for anyone.
All right, I will 1000% check that in my own time. All
right, so moving onward to the next one. I guess now this is number 5, or
the next one that you're doing should be your 6th.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Oh, the betrayal! I can't believe you've done this to Mr. Richmond. He's not top 5.
Next is Maze of the Minotaur. Again, just an absolutely unbelievable game. Like I said, organizing these games was just like incredibly hard. Every game that I put, in this list near the top is like just an unbelievable accomplishment of a game for a jam. I don't even know really if I could say for sure that they're in the order that I honestly believe that they're in. But yeah, I mean, it's just sometimes you just play a game and you're like, well, I guess like we should probably stop making jam games because like there's just people who are so much better at this than us. And this is just one of those games. And it's not surprising to me in the least that it comes from the same team that made the tower defense game from last year that won first place. It's super. I mean, it's just a super good game. Like, there's really not that much to say. It's a game about reconfiguring a platforming level in the same style as like a classic like sliding puzzle, like a 2D sliding puzzle.
Right.
And all I have to say for Richmond in the chat is like, please make 100 more levels and come back to me. Thank you very much. And add 3 dimensions so that I can have my Rubik's Cube dream. Come back to me.
Ooh, that'd be neat.
Yeah, it's just a super good game. I hope that, I mean, it definitely deserves the top 20. I can't imagine a world in which it isn't in that list.
I can't imagine this. Once again, I can't imagine it not being in the video. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like the official top 20. There's no way that it's not. I'll probably, for no particular reason, I'll probably be talking about Maze of the Minotaur again in a little bit. But it's interesting to think about now because I didn't really think about it, but or I guess I did earlier. But like, it's actually a very similar idea to the very first game that I talked about, or one of the very first games, the clock one, where you have the grid of 9. So it's really interesting because, once again, not something that I would have. Minotaur is simply that good. Very true.
Yeah.
Well, too kind. Thanks for all the love. Anyway, so real quick before I get on to my next couple games, because now I'm into my top 5. So when I say top 5, I don't mean that these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean that all 5 of these, I want to guess that one of these 5 is going to be the game of the jam that Mark Brown picks at the end. And I think that'd be really cool if I got it. And it would also be really cool if I was totally wrong and it was a game I hadn't even heard of, because that would also be incredible. But
I feel like I should start censoring your list because like right now you're on Whale Eater, but we can see the next 2 games in your list.
Really?
Try putting Whale Eater so that it's like the 3rd game.
The 3rd, like that?
From your perspective. A little bit, go a little bit down from there. That's perfect.
Okay. Well, because what I was going to say was that I actually, so after, Static Cling, which is going to be next on my list, I actually can't scroll down anymore. So we're going to have to change screen regions and stuff. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I just want to let you know.
That's fine.
All right. So yeah. So back on to me. The first of the top 5 on my list was Whale Eater. Whale Eater was probably the best execution of the grab something and then slide it mechanic. I kind of talked about it earlier with Phase Puller. It was another mechanic that I really enjoyed. But Whale Eater not only takes that mechanic and uses it in a, excellent way, but it's also, the aesthetic of the game is so grotesque that I can't help but be enamored by it. I just look at the game and how disgusting it makes me feel, and the sound design, and I'm just like, I like being here.
The sounds are really good, especially the second ability that you get, like the sound that plays when you hook things and pull them, and then the animation that plays with it. But actually, for me, my favorite part of Whale Eater was the text. The way
when
that
you're sliding the blocks and stuff. Yeah,
there was text that appeared on the screens at different orientations based on your orientation in the game, and it was so it added so much atmosphere to the game. I really liked the whole vibe. The only reason that it didn't make, well, I shouldn't say anything, but yeah, that game is excellent, and I enjoyed it a lot. But really, the text is what sold the atmosphere for me. But yeah, as a whole package, I think it was really good.
It's just one of those things where it's just once again, just thinking about it for, oh, hey, my game, thank you. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Thank you so much, because this is an incredible game. Simply said. But it's one of those things where, because we talked during the pre-show, we were talking about the process of ideation and whatnot, and not only is this mechanic very well done and well executed, the inclusion of the aesthetic and the overall vibe that the game gives off, I never would have thought of it. You know what I mean? If I was thinking about putting Wally into an environment that would allow him to move around, I would have just did magnets or something, But the fact that it's a disgusting inside of some giant space whale is incredible. So yeah. But yeah, so that's Whale Eater.
Yeah, that's a great game. Oh, and it looks like we have the artist in chat as well. More Guma did the clicky, and I'm the artist.
Nice. Thanks a lot, you guys. You're very welcome. Very, very well done.
This the next game on my list is called Bind. Again, just grinding my my gears in my brain trying to figure out how to order these. This is a game that's sort of similar to a game you described earlier, where essentially you control a single square on the screen, and as you travel adjacent to other squares, they automatically snap onto you. And the goal is to get to the end with your character. There's one square in the grid that you have to stand in to finish the level. But in order for it to accept that you've beaten the level, all the other squares in the grid have to be connected to you in some way. And it's such a simple puzzle design. It's not really the most unique thing I've ever seen. But again, where this game shines tremendously is in the puzzle design. It blew me away. I mean, it has, I want to say, somewhere around 10 levels, and the level design is incredibly good. But even further than that, there's a lot of subtlety in the animation. So when you first look at the game, it's a super simplistic style, very minimalist, but actually there's a ton of little tiny artistic details. When you move your character around, there's a slightly transparent copy of your sprite that's just a little behind you, so it almost looks a little bit like a dash. And whenever you stand on the exit and you don't have all the squares attached to you, they just start spinning in circles. There's all these little artistic animated details that are so clean and so refreshing, and that combined with the fact that the level design is just fantastic, really sold this game for me. I mean, when I played this on stream, I beat all the levels on stream, and the last level I was stuck on it for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, and I was I just can't figure this out. And when I figured it out, I just felt so smart. It's one of those aha moments in puzzle games that you love so much. And I really think that this game is something special purely because of the attention to artistic detail for a minimalist style, which is a really interesting combination, and just pure good level design.
Excellent. You love to hear it. Okay.
So you can't scroll now?
Yeah, I'm gonna open up your stream real quick so that way I can see Oh, okay. So that's what you can see. So I can move there.
If you move it so that the title is off screen of the top one, then it's perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Let me get back onto thing. Let me just continue to make mouth noises while I buy time. All right. So yeah. The next one on my top 5 is Static Cling. I adored Static Cling in a way that I'm surprised that this game was a Game Jam game. I mean, needless to say, a lot of games from this Game Jam were like that. You know what I mean? Where I almost have like this little gremlin in the back of my mind that's like, you made this before, and it just so happened to work. Because there's no way that you were able to make this in 48 hours. It is too good. But that being said, Static Cling is exactly the type of game, because I buy a lot of indie games just in general, because they're cheaper. I enjoy them a lot more. They're also good content to just show friends and whatnot. And Static Cling, 1000% is just a game that I would have bought. If I had just seen it on like this, like a Steam summer sale, I would have just bought it. You already talked about it because it was higher on your list than mine, but just the execution of the mechanics, the idea that I get to be a living spark as I go from like light bulb to light bulb and cable to cable is incredible. It's just so fun to do. And sorry.
It's really well done, yeah.
Yeah, it's really well done. And then the one additional thing, just to like give people a little bit of an extra, how do you do? The part where you connect to water the first time.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, it's just genius. It's just genius. So yeah, that's Static Cling.
Yeah, they expand on their like on the simple like the core mechanic and a lot of like really cool and interesting ways. It's a very well made game, yeah, for sure. Okay, so then next on my list, I guess this is number 4 then. Is a game called Boxtrosity. So again, a squares in a grid.
I tried playing this and it hurt me. It dealt damage to me.
Yeah, so this game is really, really tough. But it's when you understand the mechanics very well, the puzzles are not extremely difficult to solve, but it takes a while for your head to get used to how the mechanics work. And I would say like, and this game compared to some of the other puzzle games on my list is not like quite as like just a brain destroyer as some of the other ones are, but it's so cleverly designed. So basically the way it works is that the arrow squares that appear in the grid are controlled by those respective arrow keys. So if you press that direction, then that block will move one space in that direction. And those are the only blocks that you can move. And the goal is to get the crate looking squares onto the little flag squares. But what makes the game so interesting is that there's also a magnet square. And when you hold, I don't remember what button it was.
I think it was
you press
space
a button,
or shift.
It turns the magnet on. And then any block that's directly adjacent to the magnet attaches to the magnet. And so what you can do is you can actually create these little amalgamations that have all of the controls attached to them. And then you can move around almost however you want, assuming that you have all those directions attached to you. And the level is all about how do I configure myself in such a way that I can deliver things across the screen when I can't necessarily control myself in the way that I want. And again, it's like, I don't understand how people design levels for games like this, because the game just doesn't, it's just so like, it so abstracts the idea of moving things around in a grid to a point where like designing levels feels impossible to me. Like I'm just so blown away by the fact that they were able to design not just a few, but quite a lot of levels that are all like, they all feel very different, feel very fun to play. And again, it's just another one of those games where it's like, don't change anything, add 100 more levels and give it to me. Like I just love playing it so much. It's fantastic.
I like how we're seeing a pattern of that being your seal of approval of like, give me 100 more levels and we'll ship it.
Well, yeah, because like, I mean, a lot of times like you don't need, I mean, some of these games do not need to add mechanics.
Oh,
like,
100%, yeah.
Keep the scope exactly where it is, explore that scope as much as you possibly can, and you'll come up with so many genius things. And I think what this game could do is design 100 and then cut, back down to a smaller number. Because I think what the designer of this game would find by designing a lot of levels is that they can do some really, really interesting things, and that it would just take working in that space a lot. Because I imagine again that it would be so hard to design levels like with this mechanic. that I really think it should be explored more. And I hope that they will keep working on it, because it is one of those things that like stands out in the realm of games that are just like this.
Very cool. All right. Coming up to my third of my top 5. I think if I scroll down, I should be able to... Oh, no, I don't think it fits.
All right, let me make it work. Hold on.
Thank you. I mean, you can see the title. So
then I'll just do this. Okay, maybe I made it a little too small. Okay, there you go.
All right, cool. Maze of the Minotaur. This was, once again, you already talked about it, but there was something that I shared when Mr. Richmond was in my stream the other day, an opinion that I shared that I'm going to repeat here. There's a company that just does really good pixel web-based video games, Nitrome, and I am astonished that Maze of the Minotaur wasn't just pulled out of like an alternate timeline and made by them, because it's extremely high quality. The premise is so simple but so brilliantly executed that I could play it for hours. And it's just like very similar to what you said. I just want more of this game. You know what I mean? And then you talked about like, oh, just give me like a Rubik's Cube. And I'm thinking about that now, and I'm just like, imagine like Maze of the Minotaur X Fez, where like you're rotating around the cube as you're moving around it. Oh god, that'd be so good. But that's a different game. But yeah, Maze of the Minotaur, very well done.
Yeah, and I will say that the only reason that this game ended up in a lower spot on my list than the top 5 is only because, by the nature of the design, it was very difficult, I'm sure, to not allow people to solve the levels in ways that you didn't intend, that were significantly easier than what you did intend. And as a result, and I know Richmond knows this because I've had this conversation with them, as a result, like the difficulty curve feels a bit strange, because sometimes you get to a level that just feels really easy, but it's probably because you solved it in a way that wasn't intended. And so I didn't know that. I didn't realize that until I thought about it after, when I had the conversation with Richmond, and which is what resulted in me like picking some games where that was not as much of an issue, just because of the design of the game, compared to like Maze of the Minotaur. Again, I still think it's like an insane game, and I still think it'll be in the video.
One of the things I was thinking of was, because as you mentioned previously, Richmond and their team, they won last year. Do you think that Mark Brown would ever pick the same team to win twice? I
mean, I think if they deserve to win, they deserve to win.
Yeah, I do. That's interesting to think about. But yeah, very, very good game. Thank you very much for making it. Kudos to the whole team.
Okay, so then my number 3 is Space Filler. This is yet another game about pushing blocks around in a grid.
That's why Maze of the Minotaur was lower on your list. It didn't have any blocks to push.
Yeah. I mean, if it had blocks to push, it probably would have been number 1. Okay, so this game is very, very similar in an unexpected way to a game called Pipe Push Paradise, which is a game that I'm sure many people have not heard of. It's easily one of the hardest puzzle games I've ever played. It's a game about pushing 3-dimensional pipes around in a constrained space to connect them together, and they move in ways that are sort of absurd and annoying, but it creates a very, very like deep, rich like puzzle decision space. And the further you get into that game, the more mechanics they introduce, and eventually they introduce a mechanic where one of the pipe pieces is magnetized, and if you touch a pipe to that piece, then they stick together and they move as one. And there are ways to pin a piece so that you can break the magnetized piece off. And if you break it off, then that pipe is the other pipe's no longer magnetized anymore. And this game uses that mechanic, which is why I was so shocked that the person who designed this didn't know what Pipe Push Paradise was. Because this game is very similar. It's about pushing Tetris-shaped blocks into a hole in the level. And there's one block on the screen every time where if that block is touching any other block, it magnetizes it. And the game is, again, it's just absolute genius level design. the thing that I really love about this game is that every single one of the puzzles, except for maybe the last like 2 or 3, when you look at the puzzle, it looks extremely trivial. Like it looks very easy because you can look at the shape that you need to fill, and you can look at the blocks that you have, and you could say, oh, there's only one configuration of these blocks that solves this puzzle. And you're like, all right, I guess I'll just do it then. Super easy. And then you start walking around, and then you realize, wait a minute, that block is impossible to reach because of the way it is. Like maybe it's up against a wall and you need it to be away from the wall, but you can't pull things. So then you start thinking, oh, well, how the heck am I going to get that off the wall? And then you realize, oh, I need to connect a magnetized piece to it and then use that piece to move it. And then you're like, oh, wait, but if I magnetize this piece to it, I can't move that one. And it just like creates this like progressive sense of like you hit several choke points in the levels, and it starts off looking so simple. And then when you solve it, you end up feeling like a genius because you're just like constantly having to solve these like complex problems of like, how do I get these pieces to move around? And they're just it's just so fresh, like to see a game that, again, it takes a single mechanic and pushes it as far as it can. And for that to happen in a jam is just amazing. And actually, I've talked with this developer a bunch. They've shown me like another version of a game that they're working on that's like inspired by Snakebird. It's very clear to me that this person is like extremely good at designing these like low decision space puzzle games that are super hard. I definitely recommend checking this game out. Plus, it has undo, which every Square trade game should have undo, and it's amazing to have that in a jam because undo is like not trivial to implement. Man, so nice to have.
Oh, I mean, it's literally the next game that I'm going to be covering, but like, it's the only complaint I have about the next game, where it's just like, I love it. Oh, yeah. That's so good.
Okay, so let me reorganize your screen so that we can see what the next one is. And then I can move this up. Well, I probably have to shrink it first, or else I'm eventually not going to be able to shrink it anymore. Okay, professional streamer. There we go.
Yeah, so I actually, in retrospect, because I'm pretty sure I kind of know what your number one is on the list, so maybe I should have reorganized this a wee bit better, but Folks, this game is... I'm not going to talk too much about it because I think we're going to be talking about it more in depth in just a moment. But I guess what I could say about this game is something that I've said multiple times on multiple different streams, where it's just like, as of right now, if the game were in its current state, I could easily see it featured in like a Nintendo Direct during like one of their indie spots, because it fits a very wholesome aesthetic. The mechanics are deep, but not like overbearing. You know what I mean? Or like the mechanics are simple, but used in a deep way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And Folks was just very well done. And it's just so much of it. You play it for a minute and you're like, oh, this is like pretty easy. And then you play it for 5 minutes and you're like, my brain's leaking out through my nose, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Folks.
So wait a second. So you're telling me that you're taking a gamble.
Yeah, a gamble.
That you think that my list is going to have Folks in it. Is that what you're saying? So you're choosing intentionally to not talk any more about this game because you think that I'm going to talk about it more in a moment.
Am I wrong?
I mean, we're about to find out.
We're about to find out, and now I'm like worried, but I don't know. I am taking the very big gamble of I think that you have a very high opinion of this game.
Well, we'll see what happens. From the list with 1 million block sticking games on it. Yeah. And with that being said, my number 2 game, Claw, is another game about blocks in a grid. This game comes the closest to capturing the feeling of Steven Sausage Roll of any game I've seen in a long time. I firmly believe that Steven Sausage Roll, like from a level design perspective, is the most well-designed puzzle game that's ever been created. If you've never played Steven Sausage Roll, don't pay attention to how it looks and just buy it, because it's an unbelievable game.
The person that made that game, Steven Sausage Roll, is a genius. And this game is the only game I've ever played that even comes close to capturing the same feel as I felt when I played Steven Sausage Roll. And that feel, what's so important about it is that you start with very basic mechanic and you discover extensions on that mechanic in shocking ways where you're not even intending to discover a new mechanic, and the level design forces you to. And this game does that in the same way that Steven Sausage Roll does, and it blew me away when I played it. It's so unassuming in its presentation. I think it's a Pico 8 game even. But it's literally just a game about a guy holding a claw, and all you need to do is move yourself in such a way that you match the end state of the puzzle. So like in this presentation image, it shows that you need to be basically upside down of how you are. And the only way that you can turn, you can't turn, you can only move around up, down, left, right. The only way you can turn is by attaching your claw to these little red squares. And in certain configurations, you're able to rotate around that square, and it will spin your whole character with your claw and everything. And you use those little hooked squares to rotate yourself. And I won't say anything else about it because this game is incredibly genius. This developer, I went and looked at other games that they've made, and it sent me down a rabbit hole of just incredible puzzle games that like I didn't even know existed. Again, like just like you have to play this game if you like games like that, and if you haven't played Steven Sausage Roll and you like games like that, you have to play Steven Sausage Roll. So I know I ended up talking more about Steven Sausage Roll in this game, but that's just a testament to how good this game is, because it reminds me of literally one of the most well-designed puzzle games in the history of puzzle games. Very much worth playing.
Excellent.
That's number 2.
All right.
So now we have to move on to your number 1, I guess.
Well, number 1 of the 5. It's a 5-way tie, but sure.
It's a 5-way tie, right? Okay. I can already see it, so I'm like tempering my reaction. Okay, so let's move this down and then move this down.
What a surprise! Who would have guessed?
Oh God!
who would have guessed that this small who would have guessed that this small time guy would like hitch his wagon to this horse? Who made that? I don't know. Have you guys heard of this game? It's pretty good. I don't know. Is there anything really left to say about Factory at this point? We all know we're all here.
I could say so many things about how bad Factory is, but thank you so much.
Listen, don't get emotional on me. Get emotional after the stream's over. But the like, I don't know. It's just there's something because I know we had like the pre-stream where we talked about this a wee bit. It's still in the VOD, so if those of you who end up going back to look at it, you can like listen to Theta talk about the, some of the trials and tribulations of the development of this game. But it's just like there is something like, for me in particular, I really enjoy games that allow me to solve the puzzle. No damage numbers in Factory though. I really enjoy puzzle games that allow me to solve the puzzle at my own pace in the way that I want to. And to the point where this Factory doesn't even really seem like a puzzle game to me. It more just seems like a therapeutic, I don't even know, like base building game, I guess, where it's like I have to figure out how to make these letters, but as I figure out how to make the letters, I know how to make them now. So on later levels, I can just recreate it. Or if I want to get a higher score, I can take that same design and just make it more efficient, I'm already making the letter C because I have an O. Let me just take those letter C's and make some B's over there, But yeah, it's a very well done game, and you and the rest of the team should be incredibly proud of what you've made. I will eat my non-existent hat if this doesn't make it into the top 20 for the video.
Well, I will die if it makes it into the top 20 video.
No, you won't be able to see me eat my hat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thanks a lot. And again, like the reaction to the game, I mean, we've all been like just we've several times had conversations in our sort of secret dev chat in our Discord about how we sort of feel like some of this is a bit of a dream because, again, like we didn't know really how people would react to the game because it's just like a kind of a weird idea that we had, and I'm just we're just so happy to see that people really like it, and we're so excited to release the version that we're working on. We've been sort of busting our asses this week to get like way more fleshed out version of the game released for everyone. We have some really exciting stuff to show in the new version of the game, and I'm just like so excited to see people's reaction to it, because I think not only does it solve some of the major problems that Factory does have, but it also adds some features that I think like will be surprising, but also inducing those good brain chemicals that everybody loves in games. So I really hope that like the new version, I think that the reason that now I'm like, I don't even want to see the jam version of Factory anymore is because I have the version that we have now. And I'm like, man, the old version of Factory compared to the new one. I know that's what I have to say, but like, seriously, like if you liked it, thank you so much. And I hope that you'll check out the version that we're going to release, because I think the new version is significantly better than the jam one. So if you liked it, please come back.
If it allows me to mirror things after I rotate them, it's already the best.
I can reveal one feature in the new version, which is that you can combine reflections and rotations in the new version.
Yes.
It did require me to figure out how to program group theory and symmetry reduction theory into the game, which was brutal to figure out, but I did it, and it felt like a huge achievement. But yes, you can combine those things, but there's so much more than just that. We tried to solve basically every problem that people had with the game, and then we tried to add so many features to make the game so much more fun to play. So we really hope that everybody likes the new version, and that everybody deletes the old version permanently from their brain.
Just forget it. Just forget that it existed.
But thank you so much. Seriously, like the reaction's been insane to Factory, and it just means a lot. So
before we move on to your top one, I do want to ask just one more, where it's just like, so obviously I have that's all my top 5 of like, these are the ones that I think will be game and show, one of these 5. What will you do if you get selected? Because it's like, we have the devs from like Whale Eater in here, Static Cling is so good, Shuff Folks I heard was a pretty good game from some people, and it's just like, I want to like, I just need to plumb your brain for a moment, and just like, what is your reaction going to be if the video comes out and it's like, and the game of the jam is Factory?
I mean, it's sort of something that we're not even thinking about right now, mostly just because like we don't know what to expect. And of course, when you're looking at all the other games, and I mean, I'm looking at the games on this list, and I'm like, I don't see where we fit in this top 20. I mean, I see so many games that so deserve to be in that video. And for us right now, we're not really thinking about whether or not we get in that video. We're just thinking about releasing a version of the game that like people will really love to play. And eventually.
So you mean what's already out?
A Steam version and a mobile version for Factory, which is like a huge thing that we really want to do for people. Not thinking about the video at all. We definitely don't want to like.
I don't want to butter your biscuit too much. I don't want to get your hopes too high. So we'll end it there.
But I do think that there are way more than 20 games that deserve to be in that video.
Could you imagine him releasing like an hour long? Could you imagine him releasing like an hour-long video that's like, all right, I couldn't do it, so here's the top 100.
Yeah, right. I mean, how do you even pick? I mean, I don't envy Mark having to make that decision, because I do think that like there are a lot of really incredible games that deserve to be in that video. So if we're in it, then we will be honored to share that space with like just some really talented people. Because I have been blown away by what I've seen.
In before a cease and desist letter from Zachtronics. I think we talked about that, right? Oh, that's really good.
I mean, the comparisons to Zachtronics are like incredibly kind. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Zachtronics fan. I've played obsessively every game that they've made. But yeah, anyway, thanks a lot to everybody for the response. It means a lot to us.
All right.
So
on to your number one.
So what do you think my number one is then?
I think it's shoot. I was trying to think of like just a random game that I played. I have no idea. I have not even the remotest idea of what it could possibly be. You should probably surprise me.
All right. Well, my number one game of the jam is definitely Shufflebox. Your guess as to whether or not we would be talking about this game in the future was a good one. I don't really know what to say about this game except that like Kays blew me away last year with Edna.
I still need to play that. Yeah.
Still don't understand how Edna exists in last year's jam. It was in the top 20 video as it should have been. And then again, like I was so excited when Kays came back to my chat and submitted a game because I was like, after playing Edna, I was like, I can only imagine what I'm about to experience. And holy hell, did Kays deliver. This game is like, I don't have anything else to say about it. I mean, I'm speechless. It's like one of the best. It's one of my favorite games. Like it's a jam game, but like I would play this game over and over again. I hope that Kays releases more levels. I mean, it's just so damn good. There's just nothing else to say. I hope that I hope that Kays gets the recognition that they deserve with this one.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I
really hope that they follow through with the idea of naming all of the blocks. I think that would be really cute.
Yeah, I mean, it's in my opinion, this is like a perfect puzzle game. It's exactly what I want from a game. One of my favorite things about Shufflebox is actually exemplified in one of the earliest levels. There's like a part where all you need to do is just jump up on a little ledge, and the problem you're trying to solve is so innocuous, and figuring out how to solve it is just maddening because of the way the movement works in the game. And when you solve it, you feel like you're the smartest person on planet Earth, and yet all you've done is just successfully climbed onto a ledge.
It's like I'm gonna go solve like universal theory.
Yeah, and I sent a message to someone when I finished the 6th level in the first world, which, by the way, there are 3 worlds in this game. Insane. When I finished the 6th level in the first world, I was like, I think I can move things with my mind now. Like, I think I've unlocked a part of my brain that was previously locked, and now I will be able to move things with my mind. This game makes you feel smart in a way that is just like crazy, and then it also makes you feel like the dumbest person when you can't figure out how to get up onto a ledge. Yeah, I mean, Kays is just a genius, and I hope that they keep making games because, like, if they keep making games like Edna and Shufflebox, like, they're just unstoppable. And I will be very, very upset if this game is not in the top 20.
Once again, there's no way it's not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, this game is genius. It's a perfect game. I hope that Kays sells it, and I hope that Kays makes more levels and gives them to me.
Make 100 more levels and give them to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a good. It's just such a good game. It's brilliant in every way.
What an incredible. Not even just a game, but like what an incredible like game jam this year, because I wanted to participate. So this was the first game jam that I've participated, or the first GMTK game jam that I participated in, and I wanted to participate last year, but then personal stuff happened, and the year before that there was more stuff. So it's like I finally got around to doing it because it's like, what else am I doing in my life? And like just being able to participate and then play so many incredible games where it's just like, who are you people? Do you exist in a different timeline? Like this time, like how does this exist? And it's incredible. It's inspirational. It's really good.
Yeah.
Do you guys participate in Ludum Dare? You guys did, right? Your team did?
Yeah, we've done more than one Ludum Dare. Actually, so we recently just released a full game called Six It, which you can find on our itch page. I think if you just type !itch, it will take you there. If I can type an exclamation point. So we just released a game called Six It, which is actually based on a Ludum Dare game that we made just over 2 years ago. And yeah, we've participated in Ludum Dare more than once, and then this was our second GMTK submission. So we've done, I think in total, we've done 6 jams in our team. This being the 6th one.
Cool.
But
so yeah, allow me to ask you
I like
this.
Ludum Dare a little better.
Oh, really? Why is
just
that?
because of the time. I think 72 hours compared to 48 is just a little bit better. 48 feels extremely stressful. 72 is like if you stress yourself out in the first 48, you get a whole day to polish. We certainly would have benefited from that. But I don't think I like the format of like week-long jams, but I also think 48 is a little too short.
So 72 might be like a happy medium, do you think?
I think 72 is the sweet spot for game jams, and that's why I like Ludum Dare a little tiny bit better.
I'll have to keep that in mind. I'll have to bring that up to my team, assuming we don't dissolve. But so we talked about it at the top of the stream, or not really the top of the stream, but like towards the beginning of the stream. Do you want to do just a really quick recap? Just go through each of our lists, just list them from top to bottom for those who showed up late.
Sure. Why don't you?
You want me to go first?
Yeah. Hopefully you'll be able to fit everything.
I think it'll. I don't know what. Like, can you see a pleasant?
Okay. I can fix it. In fact, let me. Since you're just going to show off your list, I'm just going to
show the whole screen.
Show the whole screen, which
very well,
of course, doesn't really work. So let me zoom in a little bit and expand. Oh, your screen disappeared.
Oh, sorry. I was hovering over a page.
Was that from Blasphemous?
What?
The art that just like was on your screen for a second?
No, that's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh, okay, kind of looked like Blasphemous a little bit.
Blasphemous is a good game. I really need to play it more.
All right, so that's.
Oh, it's so big.
This doesn't look great, but it'll do.
Okay. So so just a quick rundown of my. So I just as a recap, I separated my list into two categories essentially. I have my like 15-way tie for second place, and then a 5-way tie for first. So on my list, I had A Pleasant Walk Under the Stars, which was very good. What are you laughing at?
I'm gonna try. I'm trying so hard to remember that for when I have to say it.
You should say that you should bite the bullet and try to say the French name one time.
God.
You should. It'll be fun. All right. So there was that. I also enjoyed Clockwork, Phasing Puller, Gods and Coins, the criminally underrated Blobby and Feather joined together, Rat King, because I'm not pronouncing that in German, Eject Bomber, Runner OS, Must Dwarves Together, because I said it correctly this time, Rickshaw's Radical Rickshaw, very good. Thinking with Boxes, a game that is available for the Game Boy Advanced if you want, for some reason. Slimy Slimes, very good. Octopuzzler, pure brilliance. We're a Dragon, delightful all the way. And then Glob is my last of the 15-way tie. And then the 5-way tie for first is shared among Whale Eater, Static Cling, Maze of the Minotaur, Shuff Folks, and of course, Factory.
Woo. All right, so I will hide your screen, and then let's hide that, and let's hide this. Why is it not showing up? There it is. And then I guess I can just do this. Okay, so my list in slightly different format is in order from 20th place to first place. Telephone Trouble, which I really want to be fleshed out a lot because I feel like if you throw away this extremely tactile animation and sound design, then it's just a tragedy. Ident, which I am demanding that I beat in 15 seconds. They Must, which I'll probably never beat because it's too hard for me. Idol Contact, which is spooky and awesome and great look. Gravity's overrated. Just a super fun like little arcade. Like it reminds me of like the classic days of like really good Flash games.
I forgot that's what the name of the game was, and I thought you were going back on your decision to put it on the list and be like, it's overrated.
This tonight, which I will be very angry if it's not on my phone by tomorrow. Octopuzzler, I hope that they do way more. Like you said, adding new mechanics to the game. I would love to see this again. Passible Soirée au Fille de Toi, I think is.
Oh,
I know Fille de Toi is the right pronunciation for the end of that, but I don't know the beginning at all. I love the look of this. It actually, I didn't say this before, it kind of reminds me of BioShock, since both have this like sort of Art Deco
style, yeah.
Even though this is not like a horror game, but it just like really reminds me of that aesthetic. Static Cling, go ahead and sell it. Why is this on a niche page? Long Tails is fantastic. Side by Size, I could see this getting really, really disgustingly hard, and I hope it does. Aquila, I want this to be a Hollow Knight-sized Metroidvania. So get to work. UI Warrior, super brilliant.
What an unbelievably like large thing you just told that team to do. I want this to be a Hollow Knight sized adventure, and they look and it's like a monolith.
Yes, please. A Monster Snowball, which again is probably too hard for me to actually beat, but extremely good. Maze of the Minotaur, really just not much to say. It's just a very, very well made game. Bind, I challenge you to beat this game. Super hard. Boxtrosity, just appreciate like the cleverness and the uniqueness of it. Space Filler is just another one of those where like you just have to try to beat it and see how well designed the levels are. Claw is pure genius, and then Shufflux is a perfect game. So yeah, that's my top 20.
What an incredible year to have started participating in. This is wonderful. I really enjoyed doing this. I enjoyed doing this process with you, Theta. This was a wonderful happenstance that just so happened to work out. For those of you who don't know, this man very generously gave me the audience that I needed to finally become affiliate, so I really appreciate that. This will always be part of my... Well-deserved, thank you, I appreciate it. But yeah, so I believe both of our lists are available to the public, so if anybody wants to check out any of these games afterwards, you can just find the collections online. Yeah, and I guess with that, I guess we're kind of done. Am I allowed to shill for like a hot second?
Yeah.
Hey, if anybody in chat is willing, there is a command, ! Obo token in Theta's chat. Hit that. Thank you. And give me a follow. I appreciate it. I usually do long form Let's Plays of games that I either rarely play or want to show other people, like Hat in Time and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Feel free to stop by. I enjoy having people to talk to.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the follow, Morguma, and everybody go give Obo Token a follow. Like they said they just.
Oh, P Cube's in chat. Hello, P Cube. I also liked your game. And Retro Mike, if you're here, sorry, Retro Mike, if you're here, I also liked your game. I'm sorry it's not on my top 20, but I liked it. It's really good. Anyway,
the Obo Token command is for my chat to get to Obo Token. If you're already there, you've succeeded. Yeah, everybody go give them a follow. They say that it's my fault for rating them that they hit affiliate, but I always say with raids that I can only put the people in your room. It's up to you to keep them there. So if you hit affiliate, it's because you deserved it. And I hope that you continue to stream, and I hope that your stream grows as it should. Did y'all get a chance to play You Are Red, You Are Blue? No, I have not played.
I have not either. I'll have to also add that to my list of things to check out.
But yeah, with that out of the way, if any of you are interested, normally I stream like hard platformers and puzzle games. If you're interested in hanging out after GMTK is over, and potentially watching us develop games in the future, or just watch me play stuff that's hard, then definitely drop a follow and come back and see me. The best part about the jam experience for me was last year seeing people like Patroller who stuck around after the jam. Just it's such an awesome way to meet people who are into similar things. So please feel free to come back and hang out. I would love to see you in the chat. 1 year anniversary. Patroller and I are actually married as of last year's GMTK, so this is our 1 year anniversary. Just kidding.
Oh my god. I was about to say Mazel Tov.
Yeah, thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. This was super fun. I hope that you enjoyed it, and you definitely check out the list. I posted it in chat. Play all the games on it. You must. I demand it. So yeah, if there's nothing else you want to say, then I'm gonna end it.
Oh, I clicked that wrong, but anyway, it's fine. That's the basic idea. Yeah, I guess just one last thing. Not really talking about this, but after this, at some point, we should discuss whether or not we were thinking about doing the co-op game stuff.
Yeah, I'm down. Yeah,
sure.
Anytime.
Coolio. All right. Oh, I
Goodbye,
think that's
friends.
it. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, I ended the stream times.
Okay, I am going to... Goodbye, P-Cube and Retro Mike. I very much enjoyed having you guys in chat. Wait, where in chat? Wait, what? Did I do something wrong in chat? Did I not post the thing? How do I post this link? Because it's just itch collections. This.
I don't know. For me, I copied it. It's totally different for me.
I'm about to say, because I'm in the app. Hopefully you can use that to find my collection. It's not really a link, but hopefully it works. All right, cool. So with that, I don't know what that noise is.
I'm stretching.
Also his channel. Okay. How the hell do I find? Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to appease. Here you go. ThetaGC. I didn't really think about doing that. Give me a second. I'm coming. Here you go. That's Theta's channel. Give him a follow. He super deserves it. All right. That should be. Don't owe me. Shut up. All right. Goodbye, everybody. This was a wonderful stream. It was just under 3 hours too. All right. Ciao, ciao.
Wow, was it really